So many possible worlds, but we got this one. So many possible worlds, but we got this one.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Worst of All Possible Worlds podcast. I am the Worst of All Possible Joshes.
I am the Worst of All Possible Brians.
And today we have a guest with us. Very exciting. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I'm the Worst of All Possible Levi Nayman from New York City.
And yeah, cool.
Do you need me to tell you what I do?
Yeah, why don't you go for it?
Okay, I'm a pinball enthusiast in New York City. I've been doing this for about over 20 years, owning pinball machines, refurbishing them, selling them to people who don't mind paying for a quality pinball product over at www.crazylevypinball.com. I've been back before the forums. I was on RGP. That was the old news group until AOL told us we had to leave. And then I migrated on over to the to Pinside, which is now where most of the beefing goes on. I also help with a few other guys, Tim Sexton, Austin Smith, and Paul Karras. We put on the New York City Pinball Championships. We're hoping to get that going again maybe next year, now that our venue is no longer a homeless shelter. But we have a lot of obstacles to get over, but that's not really relevant to this discussion.
Yeah, well, it's cool to know. And I mean, I actually, for the listeners at home, I met Levi doing pinball in New York City in the bar league quite a while ago, like maybe a decade ago at this point.
It's been a long time. I remember the night I met you, I dipped into your bag of Ritz crackers, which I thought were public domain. Your shifty looks and squirreling the box away and hiding it somewhere made me realize that they weren't. And I did apologize to you.
That's so funny. I don't even remember. That's awesome.
Well, you do like Ritz crackers, right?
Well, I love Ritz crackers. Yeah, who doesn't?
It sounds like what brings us here today is another type of theft that has occurred within the pinball community, much
true.
like you stealing the snacks, which means that today we are, that's right, doing an emergency podcast. This is an emergency. Democracy is in crisis.
That's right.
There is nothing. There is only pain. There is suffering. There is disaster.
Oh, this is still going.
It keeps going.
That was great.
And it ends with the Tim Allen grunt.
Yeah. And, for those of you who are listening to this for the first time, what we do on this podcast, usually it's analyzing pieces of pop culture, kind of looking at it with a critical lens, seeing how events that take place and how media that's put in front of us can oftentimes reflect broader trends going on in the world. And the great theft to which Brian is referring is, well, there has been a pinball startup that it turns out was doing some pretty shifty business. And we'll really get to the full expose about what that thing is. But I think that just to get started with, Levi, if we could get kind of the Cliff's Notes about sort of what, maybe if we could like walk through real quick, from maybe like late 80s through to like a few years back, kind of what happened with the big pinball manufacturers, where they all went, how the boutiques got started up, and just like what brought us to the situation that ultimately led to a man making this major theft.
All right, I could probably condense the last 35 years of pinball history.
Yeah.
Basically, in the late 80s through the early 90s, there was a huge boom in pinball. You might remember games like Addams Family. These games sold tens of thousands of units, which was unheard of before in pinball. Right. Very, very successful. There was not much, as far as I know, there was not much of a home hobby at that time. It was all just few people maybe would have games in their house. I remember as a kid, seeing an old game in someone's house. It just wasn't really a thing. They were marketed to operators. Operators bought them and they put them out on routes. And there was a very, very small kind of subset of people who kind of tinkered with these things on their own. Right.
And then the late 90s, late 80s, early 90s, that was really before the death of the modern arcade. Like the arcade was kind of holding on at that point. I would say, but overall, yeah, there was still a good market for routes, I guess you could say, right?
Yes, pinball was very profitable for root earners throughout the 90s. Unfortunately, this began to end as the 90s went on. Basically what happened, like you said, the arcades kind of died, and the root operators stopped buying games because games like Addams Family were making so much money. And games immediately after Addams Family, like Twilight Zone, were mechanical disasters that, while they sold a lot of money, they didn't make a lot of money because they were always broken. They sold a lot of units, but they didn't make a lot of money on roots. And that trend just kind of continued throughout the 90s. And finally, in about, I think it was 99, Williams, who was at that time the biggest pinball company, they called it a day. They were still making money, but they were cooking the books to make it look like they weren't. And their shareholders were like, get out of pinball and make slot machines. And they still do that to this day.
Oh, wow.
Right. And this Williams, by the way, is the same Williams that gave us, among other things, Mortal Kombat. So they and Joust. So
it's interesting you bring that up. There are some bad games that have fairly large production numbers, like Popeye, that made 6,000 or 7,000. It's a terrible game.
Oh, wow.
This is mid-90s Williams Valley, same company at that point, pinball machine. And basically operators were forced to buy these if they wanted Mortal Kombat 5 or whatever was coming out. This is the kind of industry we're dealing with. It was, Bally was owned by the mob at a certain point, back in the old days. Right. It's always been a cash business. It's always attracted interesting individuals. It's always been kind of a small industry with a small market that was strictly commercial.
In a very dedicated market. And that's the other thing that I think, when we get to talking about the core subject of today's emergency podcast, that's just going to be a really important thing to keep in mind. The other thing that I wanted to point up that you mentioned is what you said about the mechanical complexity of games like Twilight Zone, right? That these are great pinball machines that are a nightmare to maintain en route because of how mechanically complex and prone to failure they are, right? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, I don't want to give pinball too much of a bad rap, but it's just some games like Twilight Zone had a lot of toys baked into them, and these games weren't really. It took a couple weeks for these issues to come out, and this isn't every pinball machine in the 90s. The real issue was just that Addams Family was doing great, so why buy another game? It still makes money. If you put a 25-year-old Addams Family on location, it's still going to earn well, and people still do that. But the problem with games like Twilight Zone, like the clock, it got too hot in there because there were light bulbs, and this clock would fail within like a couple of weeks. So they started drilling holes in them to get the air out. And there's a proximity switch that would tell you when there's a ceramic Powerball in there that would fail. And pinball machines in general are just very complicated and prone to needing maintenance. I wouldn't say prone to failure necessarily, but if you're gonna operate pinball machines even to this day, you're gonna need to root them. Right. You're going to need to maintain them, and that means addressing things that are going to break. A lot of them are going to be simple, but a loose wire will make your game unplayable and then unearnable as far as cash goes. So it was a combination of that, but mostly it was just the collapse of the arcades as well, and shrinking the industry down, just going where the money was, which was gambling.
So then, end of the 90s, we get Bally Williams goes belly up after developing a technology called Pinball 2000. And that was their attempt to sort of merge the world of video games into pinball. The thing was like there was a little monitor that would project down onto the playfield glass so that it looked like you were shooting up into a screen.
Yeah, it used pretty old tech that you would see on these old shooting mechanical games where it was, basically the Pepper's Ghost effect. Where it would just make it look like you were kind of shooting at stuff. I remember the first time I saw one at Broadway. I think they called it Broadway Arcade. It was on 42nd Street. This is around 2000 or so. And I wasn't too blown away by it. It was kind of like I got the gimmick right off the bat, but I just kind of wanted a regular pinball machine. And this is going to be something that you see over and over again throughout the last 30 years of pinballs, that everybody thinks they want like innovations. They want something new. They don't even know what it is. They just want it. And the pinball machine companies that will just give you a pinball machine on schedule and not steal your money are not providing the innovation that everybody seeks. They want, you should see the stuff people come up with. Like they want a Back to the Future game with a flaming DeLorean tearing across the playfield with smoke coming out. Like that's what would impress people at this point. And it's just not going to happen because it's not pinball. And it's like, I feel like So you're going to see this over and over again. People they're not happy with the reality, which is simply pinball, which hasn't really changed that much since the flipper was invented in 1948. I mean, sure, there's been some changes, but it's always going to be pinball. And that just doesn't seem to be enough for people. And that seems to be why people are always willing to spend money on the fantasy.
Right.
Well, I played Pac Junior at Pioneers a few years ago, and I think that was the pinnacle of the. I'm joking. This is a lie. It's one of the worst things I've ever played in my life.
Baby Pac-Man, right? Is that what you're talking about? The one with I remember playing that too, and I was like 8 years old. I was like,
it's like such a cool idea, but it's terrible.
I just remember being a little baffled, because I knew what pinball was, but I really knew what Pac-Man was, and it seemed to me like a bad Pac-Man game. That's funny. The video pinball combo, they try it every 10 years and it never works either.
Right.
Because again,
and every time it's like they say that they're the first ones to do it.
Pinball people like pinball, and video game people like video games, and that's kind of how it is.
Anyway, take us then from sort of the turn of the millennium. What happens after Bally Williams folds, and what is it that keeps pinball alive?
Well, I'll go back a little bit to the 70s. Sam Stern was one of these old men, one of these old Jews who was involved in the pinball scene with a bunch of other guys like himself.
And this is all in Chicago too. I feel like that lends a little bit of that just helpful context to go like along with the whole, very specific characters in a very specific town who are connected in very specific ways, shall we say? Right.
And we're talking the 20s or 30s. These guys all kind of started at these same companies, and then some of them kind of branched off and made their own companies. Harry Williams and Sam Stern, he was involved in a company, and his son Gary, who still runs Stern today, he eventually created his own company, Stern Electronics. He bought out Chicago Coin, which was kind of a distant fourth behind Bally, Gottlieb, and Williams at the time. They specialized, Chicago Coin, I think, mostly in bowling games, like shuffle alleys. Those are kind of 12-foot long games with a puck or a ball, and you shoot at these plastic pins. And they also did baseball games where you have a bat, and one guy pitches and the other guy bats, and you get home runs, and they ring up. These were, arcade games. You'd see them in bars. They also made bad pinball machines. I just got rid of one because it was a nightmare to work on. 1975 Chicago Coin Cinema. I sold it for $300. Let somebody else deal with it. That's neither here nor there. Gary Stern, the plucky young upstart, decided to follow in his father's footsteps, and he started Stern Electronics, buying Chicago Coin. They continued to make mechanicals for a couple of years, and then they made digital games, which was the new thing in the late 70s. You get rid of the mechanical stuff, you bring in computer chips, transistors, circuit boards, and now you have digital. The main way to tell this on an old game is the digital displays, instead of the mechanical score reels that you'll see in a mechanical game.
And I know some of those Stern games, specifically those early solid state ones, are still pretty popular in some circles, especially on the competition circuit. Like Ali, I know, is a really popular one.
Yeah, they're really good games, and it kind of took them a while to get their due, because I think back in the old days, they still had that Chicago Coin stench on them.
Right.
But now, and they are not built as well. The light sockets are garbage. If you get an old Stern game, you got to replace them. They're not that bad, though. I mean, they're really, the cabinets are a little, I've had some issues on them, but they're really not bad. I mean, all of these games were made the last 5 years, maybe 10 if you're going to stick in some honky tonk, as like a third tier location. But, he had success for a while until the first arcade collapsed in the mid 80s. And then he was forced to shut his company down around 84, I think. The mid 80s were very bad for the arcade industry across the board. I'm sure you guys know about this. There's a total collapse, and pinball was also a victim. And Stern went out of business. Come the late 80s, when it's kind of all coming back, arcades are coming back, pinball's doing well. Williams was selling tons of games with like high speed, F-14, stuff like that. He came back into the business with Data East was his company. I guess he partnered up with the video game guys and started Data East. And these games also were not really built as well. I'll tell you now, if you get these early ones, the cabinets are just total garbage.
They are fun, though. They're weird, but they're fun.
They are fun. And if you get one in nice shape, that's cool. Like I had a RoboCop. That was a cool game.
Yeah.
But they did their own thing, and it was profitable. And they continued into the 90s. Eventually, Sega bought them. I don't know if Gary was involved anymore at that point, but Sega bought the company.
Yeah, and then with Sega, you've got Starship Troopers, you've got the South Park pinball machine, you've got Baywatch? Wasn't that a Sega?
Baywatch, yeah. And South Park was a huge hit. I heard that game still earns. It's not a very good game, but it earns. It's kind of funny.
Most likely on the license. There's a big toilet in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah, they were big into toilet games. They made several games with toilets.
Was that sort of the first time that a Japanese company kind of got into this?
Yeah, as far as I know, there might have been Segasa. I don't know if that had anything to do with those guys. Okay. I think Sega was involved, kind of making some mechanical games back then. I was getting a little confused.
Okay. And then a little bit after Sega entered, Capcom decided to try their hand as well. That didn't work out for them so much, but put a pin in that because we are going to come back to that later.
Yeah, they're not the only ones. Also, the Gottlieb guys, Gottlieb sold their company to Columbia, and then they sold to somebody else. The Gottlieb guys themselves, the family had been out of the business for a long time. And I guess they attempted in the mid-90s to get on the gravy train because all these games were starting to sell well again. And they started the Alvin G Company.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And they made some real oddball games. I honestly don't know if I've ever played an Alvin G game. They didn't make them in big numbers. I believe, and I don't know if this is true, but I've heard old timers say they were actually building these in a hospital. In Chicago. Like, this is some Gottlieb hospital. And I guess they were building games there. I don't know, but they weren't a huge success. And it was also the wave was cresting, as far as the pinball revival. So Sega got out and sold back to Gary. So it was Data East, Sega, and then Stern. By 2000, it was Stern again. And they came back into the business making pretty poor games, but they got better quickly, Stern stuff. They started out with like Striker Extreme, which is crummy, and Sharky Shootout is one, which isn't too hot. But by like 2002, 2003, they were making a product pretty close, maybe not as consistently, but pretty close to what we see from them now. Like good games with good licenses people want, deep software.
Yep.
So, Gary knows how to do this. He's been doing this his entire life. And pinball people really, it just keeps going back to the weird emotional investment that pinball people who are really deep into this always put into this industry and these companies. They look at a guy like Gary and they think, oh my, this guy's in it for the money. This guy, he's not passionate. It always goes back to the passion and the magic. And that's where they want to throw their money, to this imaginary, passionate, Jack and the Beanstalk. It's going to make all their dreams come true. It's going to be innovative. Gary is a guy who literally his entire life, like pinball, has paid for the roof over his head since he was a little kid. And, then his dad moved down to Miami and retired, and he kept doing it. And it's gotten his kid through college. It's paid for his divorces. It's paid for his Harley.
Well, not to mention also that, Stern has kept a lot of people employed, including a manufacturing presence in the United States, in Chicago. Like, that's pretty rare these days for stuff to actually be assembled in America.
This is absolutely true. Part of it is this is just a funny aside, and, it's a long time ago, but I recently saw this memo from 1978 that he issued to his operators. Apparently his workers had gone on strike, and he successfully beat down their strike. And we'll be able to continue to bring you viable, inexpensive pinball machines, thanks to his brutal put down of the strike.
Thanks, Gary.
That was a long time ago. There are no union manufacturers in pinball anymore.
Right.
Back then there were, but it was a different time, of course.
Well, yeah, just about everything these days.
Hopefully their pay is good. It seems like, it's an assembly line. It's a lot of work. But so that's pretty much the story of the pinball industry up to now. Stern, well, not up to now, but until
about 5-6 years ago. Yeah.
About 2010.
Right.
It was really just Stern.
Really, for a solid while there, there was exactly one game in town. And for a while, it was Bally Williams, with Sega kind of doing its own thing. So Data East Sega kind of doing its own thing off to the side, including, by the way, Brian, the Tommy the Musical Pinball Machine. I don't know if you knew that there's a pinball machine of Tommy. It's pretty good.
It makes sense.
It's based on the Broadway show, which is a little strange.
Yeah.
About pinball. I would amend your synopsis a little bit. Gottlieb, which became Premier Gottlieb, continued into the 90s.
That's right.
So you really did have three pinball manufacturers.
Right.
And it didn't start to, the industry didn't really start to contract until the mid to late 90s. And then Gottlieb called it a day. and Barry Williams called it a day. And what you were left with was Stern at that point, turn of the century.
Right. So Stern was then the only game in town for the first decade of the new millennium, and produced a number of really solid games that are still pretty well liked by collectors. You've got games like Spider-Man. I personally love Roller Coaster Tycoon. I think it's a very underrated game.
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings, of course. Lord of the Rings
Simpsons.
Simpsons Pinball Party.
They were putting out games that people liked, and this also coincides at a point where people are starting to buy these for their homes first. I remember the first unboxing video I ever saw was a guy proudly unboxing his Monopoly game around 2001, 2001 or 2002. And that's when people started buying these games, specifically buying brand new games for their home. And people started really talking about it online. What's the next game? Who's designing it?
I remember posting on Gabe's Pinball as a teenager. I was like, I think 16 and posting on RGP, pretending to be an adult, but like very much a teenager.
A message board? This
is a Usenet group.
Oh, okay.
We can do another podcast on this and explain to everybody what a Usenet group is.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk a little bit then about like the big dynamic that is happening, from now the 2000s, starting the 2000s, how now the rise of home collecting is becoming a thing. Routes still exist, but they're not as lucrative or as plentiful as they used to be. But this new market,
mostly bars,
right. But now we've got this new market,
as opposed to an arcade,
right?
Okay.
And there's not a lot of places that have 10 games anymore. There's a bar that has 2 games, or a movie theater that has a game. I mean, that was, and at the same time, the Williams stuff is starting to get old, and you're not seeing it out there as much.
Right. So let's talk to me a little bit then about the rise of the home collector. Like what sort of prompted that sea change, and then how did it affect the business model of, Stern specifically, but also just the industry more broadly?
Well, it's got to be the internet. I mean, I'd like to say it isn't, but the first time I realized I could own my own pinball machine was, just from being online and finding like that news group. And a friend of mine told me actually he was looking for a game. And I started to think, wow, because when I was a kid, I had a friend who had a couple games in his basement. He had a high speed and an F-14, and parents who weren't around a lot, and he had beer and stuff. So we would hang out there all the time, and play these pinball machines. It started to, at this point, people started to, there was a Mr. Pinball, which is still around. I wouldn't go there. It's all scammers now. But there was an actual classified online thing that every morning would list ads. And I would go there every morning and look at games where I could buy. And, you could just search online and start finding people who were selling pinball machines. So I think that had a lot to do with it. Before that, I think the main way people bought and sold games was through like a monthly mailer. There was like a newsletter, and people would put their ads in that thing. And the prices, of course, are hilarious now. It's like, gee, I'll take a high speed for $600.
Yeah, no kidding.
Wait, so I actually have a question. So primarily, were people who were buying these for home use, were they buying them new, or were they getting them from bars and arcades and bowling alleys?
That's a good question. They were getting them. They were getting these games from other collectors. Okay. Mostly it was used games back when I started out. I think I bought my first game in 2001. But people were buying mostly used games from each other.
And you're talking about like the business model then of the manufacturers, which at this point was just Stern. How did that then change the way that they marketed their products? Like how did that difference in customers change the way they did business? That's
a good question too. And the answer is at first, not much. I don't know if it's to be believed that he really felt like this, because you don't know, just because Gary says something doesn't mean it's true. But he, as far as I know, well into the 2000s, was still only thinking about operators. He claimed he didn't care. He claimed he didn't really consider the home market to be big, and he was marketing to operators. So it really hadn't changed much at that point. And like I said, most people, the other thing that was happening is games were getting imported back to the States. All these 90s games had been sent in during the salad days, the 80s and 90s. Thousands of games have been sent over to Europe, Spain, what have you. I know there's several continents and countries.
Well, and I definitely remember too. Like I have seen games in collectors, collections, with like the coin slot will be something that you put Deutschmarks in,
Right. Deutschmarks, Lear, Francs, all sorts of stuff. And I will tell you, those games stank to high fucking hell. I don't know what it was, but they smoked a lot over there.
Well, I mean, Italians, right?
I got the smelliest game I ever got was a Shadow that had been, I believe, in France, and I can still smell that thing. But I learned pretty early off the bat, like, okay, I'm going to have to get my hands dirty if I want it. This is a hobby I want to be into. And again, the internet was a valuable resource for figuring out how to fix games. There were, this guy Clay put these guides online, which literally, this is wrong, this is how you fix it, and they were very well done. Right. And they helped someone like me who didn't really have any kind of...
I think to your point, Levy, like, so I got into the hobby in like the mid-aughts, which I think was around the time that like the collector market was becoming really an entity in and of itself. But I remember when I got on board with the hobby, it was still very much a thing of like, this isn't a deluxe, like, we'll ship it to you with white glove. It was expected that you would have some understanding of electronics and some understanding of how to, take the thing, open it up and poke around in it. Even if all you were doing was rewiring a couple things or replacing the light bulbs, the idea was that you would be getting your hands at least a little bit dirty. But I feel like as we sort of moved then through into the 20 teens, that I think is kind of when it started changing. And that also, I think, then sort of leads us into sort of the boutique pinball manufacturing movement and things like that we then started seeing. And this is really, I think, what lays the groundwork for the main event, right?
Well, yeah, I would say that's accurate. I mean, the market exploded in the 2000s because, these game operators were not buying these games that were fresh off the ship. They sent them over there in the first place. Right. They got rid of them, or they didn't want these old games. The home market was suddenly flooded with all these awesome 90s games. The demand went up, and especially as those games started to dry up, like in the early 2000s. I mean, that boom didn't really last that long. It was pretty much over by the time I got into it already. Right.
But also at that point too, because that extra supply has now dried up, at this point too, prices start going up as well.
Right. Demand has risen and now supply is dropping. And there's still plenty of pinball machines for people to buy, but not everybody wants some 70s games for, $200. Right. Manufacturers also started coming out with these repro guys, who are doing God's work, put out new board sets for these ancient games with primitive boards that were not built to last. And suddenly a whole generation of like late 70s digital Gottlieb games that had been basically worthless and bricked for 10 or 15 years, 25 years, were now feasible to own these games and restore them. So a lot of resources and creativity was going into the home market to get all these games going. For a long time, that was enough for everybody. There was still tons of games. They were still pretty cheap. And pretty much, everybody was happy with them. What happens as the 2000s go on is you get more younger people and more older people with money who want brand new games. They don't want some crappy old, Bally. They don't want mechanical. They don't want something they're going to have to tinker with. They want a brand new showroom floor game. And Stern's the only one to give it to them. And at the same time, Stern's not doing so hot. I really don't know the particulars of what was going on, but I've heard rumors that in the late 2000s, I guess the aughts, you'd call that, the first 10 years. Yeah. I've heard rumors that they were on death's door, more or less. And, the product took a pretty big nosedive. The late aughts games are not very good.
Remind me what some of those games are.
24, CSI.
Oh, yeah, those games are shit. Like
Indiana Jones.
Yep.
And so these games are getting made specifically to sell to home buyers.
No, these are still going. Gary Stern is still, he's still he's still going along with the model that's fed him and his dogs for 50, 60 years. Okay. But what happened? And then you have there's a financial crisis at the time, and it hits everybody pretty hard. I never saw in the hobby. I never saw prices drop. What I saw is people just not selling their games. Like pinball people, and this is one common thing from the old men who were doing it when I started to the young hipster of today to everybody in between, is pinball people hate losing money. They don't they don't understand that, you buy a game and you've had it for 5 years and you've played hundreds and hundreds of games on it. You got to lose a few $100, whatever. It's not the end of the world. They take this personally. And, a financial crisis. You get all these, one of the favorite threads that pops up once a month on Pinside is, will the bubble burst? And the answer is no, the bubble will not burst. People have been asking this question for 20 years and the bubble is not bursting because, if 500 people decide to sell their pinball machines, everybody will buy them. It's like,
right.
I've always said the bubble will burst when there's a complete economic meltdown. And I thought we finally had that. The first couple of months of this pandemic, I'm like,
right.
finally.
Yeah.
I'm finally going to look like a moron and the bubble is going to burst. The prices just went up,
right.
It just continues forever. The prices.
Yeah. It's wealth hoarding, right? It's like the same thing that leads to a lot of other capital accumulation things, right? It's like you sit on your capital and you watch it grow.
Yeah, like real estate.
Pinball's a little different in that they're constantly selling their games.
Sure.
They're just selling it for more than they paid for it.
Right.
And except for maybe a couple of years, at the end of the Bush years, the beginning of the Obama years, where people didn't want to sell their games for less than they paid for it.
Right.
And they just kind of held on to them. Ever since that time, that's pretty much been it. And at the same time, demand has continued to explode as the internet has it used to not be such a thing. If a homeowner, through my website called me, I got some games in the basement. Great. I can work out a deal and get some games pretty cheap. Now, of course, the first thing anybody does when they're trying to sell an old game they've had forever is Google.
Right.
But it helps me too, because my prices don't look so bad when I know people are finding the top Google search is, a 24 for $8,000. But again, it's just the home market really exploded. And finally around this time, are we moving on to the next phase?
Yeah,
now?
let's move on. The next phase.
We're getting into the 2010s now.
We're getting into the 2010s. At this point, we've got a pretty large, pretty substantial market full of guys who, and it is almost all guys who are looking to get games that are ready to go, that are special, that are every bit as special as they are, right?
Correct. But at this point, the market has not really caught up to them. Stern isn't doing so hot. Their games are getting worse, not better, and less complex. And at this point, a Stern distributor and a guy who I believe made redemption games at that point, Jersey Jack Giurani, I believe, was actually from Brooklyn. But he was out.
I'm sorry. What is a redemption game?
Ticket spitter, kitty gambling.
Oh, okay.
Which is a very profitable market. Those are huge.
Like the little light that goes around in a wheel kind of stuff.
Right. You can win an iPad. You win tickets. You have a bushel of tickets that you spent all summer working on. You trade it for a 10-inch TV.
And most crucially, with redemptions, you can set what the payout is going to be. You can stack the odds. It's not a game of skill like pinball. It's purely a game of chance.
It's kiddie gambling, and not just for kids. Like grown-ups like this stuff. So at that point, this guy, and I think he's had, again, I don't really know the specifics, but I think maybe he had a working relationship with Stern that was pretty close. He was a big distributor on the East Coast, a big seller of games, and he sold games to people in homes. I still come across games that have the pinball sales sticker on it. And there was a lot of old time retailers. There was a guy, Todd, who's still in the business, TNT. I get some of his games every now and then. There were guys selling specifically to the home market, and Jack was one of them. And what Jack saw, as far as I understand, is that there was a market that was not being served. People who wanted the games of their dreams, more innovative games, more complicated games, something that seemed a little newer than what Stern really had been putting out for about 15 years unchanged, 20 years almost at this point.
And again, it's worth noting, this is at a point where the quality, it's not just that the quality of Stern's games in terms of the gameplay design and everything is poor in the quality of the art. It's also the games themselves. They feel flimsier than they have, they're if you play a Stern game from this era, it doesn't stand up to the Stern games produced earlier in the decade, or for that matter, the games produced later in the 2010s.
And of course, the old timers like myself, they never really seemed as good as the brilliant stuff that we fell in love with in high school and college.
Right.
And that's something that that's just a natural nostalgia, I guess. But they never, they never felt like they had the flippers weren't as good. The games weren't as creative. I'd compare something like Ripley's Believe It or Not to, Attack from Mars or Addams Family. And they just didn't really seem to have that kind of magic.
Yes.
That you can't.
Which is another thing that pinball people talk about all the time is pinball magic, right?
Right.
Attack from Mars is what you have, right, Josh?
I do have an Attack from Mars, yeah.
So again, about 2010 or so, Jack decides to start his own pinball company, which went by the name of Jersey Jack. He claims it wasn't his ego. They like the sound of it and the alliteration. The logo is the state of New Jersey. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, and they're headquartered out. Where are they headquartered out of?
Well, now they're out of Chicago.
Right.
Originally, it's funny. Right?
Jersey Jacks of Chicago.
Well, originally their manufacturing was in Jersey near Six Flags over in Lakewood.
Oh, okay.
And most of their designers and tech guys, I believe, were in Chicago.
Right. And I remember when Jersey Jack got started too, because it was a big deal, right? Like at that time, Stern had been the only game in town for a solid decade. And it was like, wow, like we are going to get another true first-class pinball manufacturer that is making like real games and is going to make games that sort of make up for the lack of innovation, of mechanical complexity and so forth that we're currently dealing with Stern. Like these are going to be big, beautiful, exciting games. And yeah.
This was exactly the pitch that was made. And they were going to be games made for the home market that Jack was way more in touch with than Gary Stern was. So he had this, I think he had this Wizard of Oz license already from a Redemption game he had made.
Oh, okay.
And I thought it was kind of an interesting choice for license. It was a pretty popular, timeless movie, But regardless, they make this game. It took a couple of years for it to come out. There were a lot of bumps in the road, but it was very extravagant. It had an LCD screen in it for the first time, like a 20-inch monitor or bigger in the head. Right,
because up until this game, all of the Stern games were still using old school dot matrix displays. These were the, and maybe you've seen these, Brian. These red are like the orange or the red. Like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And this game, I believe it was well received. People bought them, they pre-ordered them. They paid money up front. But of course, it turns out the price was way too low at first because nobody ever gets this right. Nobody understands what it's going to cost to build and design and distribute a pinball machine. So they kept having to raise the price as these things rolled out of the factory.
So was this selling exclusively to collectors and home buyers, or were some of them going to bars, bowling alleys, arcades, movie
Some of them were getting out there, sure.
Okay.
But it was without a doubt, it was the first pinball company that was focused on the home market.
Okay.
And it was successful in doing that. I mean, the game had some bumps in the road, and there were a number of tech issues, and there's always it's run by a PC, or I don't know if they still are, but these first ones had a ton of like PC stuff on the bottom of the cabinet. It was kind of a different design. The head was the head had no boards. It really just had this screen in it. It had great stereo sound. I ended up with a Wizard of Oz a couple of years ago for a while, and it was pretty cool. I mean, the sound is amazing.
Yeah, it's a fun little game,
packed with gimmicks.
Yeah, you've got like you've got the up in the like top right corner of the play field. There's a little spinning house.
There's two upper play fields.
Right. Yeah, the other one. The one is the house, and then the other one is the what is it again?
There's the Twister one, and then there's like a castle with one slipper that you kind of
right.
Like Emerald City.
Again, whenever people are clamoring for innovation, they always mean two things: magnets and upper/lower playfields. The same stuff. The same stuff that have been in games for 50 years, that were blowing minds in 1982 or whatever. This is the innovation people want. And when games come out and they don't have magnets and upper playfields, people are always disappointed.
Right.
Even though they almost always suck. Upper playfields.
Yeah, no, well, I feel like, there's just a couple. I mean, Black Knight is the one that Black Knight 2K is like one of the few ones with a upper playfield that's actually interesting. There just aren't that many of them that really do the thing correctly.
But they're there, and that's what people want.
That's right.
So now I don't know if we should rewind a little bit, but in about I don't know about the years exactly. There was one of the games that I'm going to go back into the Capcom thing with Big Bang.
Yes, let's talk about Big Bang.
This was a game that as Capcom was on the way out, I don't think they were ever on secure footing. And I think their Japanese overlords were probably tired of losing money. I mean, they were a video game company, you know?
Right.
And Capcom as a company is notorious for putting a bullet in the brain of anything that is looking anything less than 100% promising, including killing off many of their most beloved video game franchises.
Wow. Well, I didn't know that, but in 1995 or 1996, you know, Capcom Pinball probably didn't look like such a good bet to the guys who were counting the money. Plus, they were run by a complete lunatic, this guy Python, who designed. He's an Ayn Rand adherent from I think, Czechoslovakia. He's from one of the Iron Curtain countries.
Yes.
Was Python his real name, or
his real name was D'Angelo, I believe. Python D'Angelo. I don't know what his first name was. His first name. I don't know. But he was the creative genius behind stuff like PinBall, Cyclone. Like that's all his art and his ideas.
Those are great games too.
As far as he's concerned, everybody else who was involved in any of those games is like a moron who was just trying to steal his credit. It's like one of these guys. But they put him in charge of this Capcom company. And the rumor has it this company was collapsed when the Japanese CEO flew to America. I think they were in California, but I'm not sure. But he flew in to see what they were up to. And Python proudly showed off Zingy Bingy, his new prototype game that was going to save pinball yet again, because pinball was on the way out. And this was basically a game about fucking, I guess. Can we say that on that podcast?
Oh, you can say fuck all you want.
All right. There was you basically like the playfield. The playfield has two nude adults and the pop bumpers are tits, and like you're supposed to like tickle her vag with your flipper finger. It is insane. It's insane. And if you Google it, you will find a couple blurry photos of Zingy Bingy.
I don't think I've ever seen
that makes me
Zingy
think
Bingy.
Have you ever heard about it?
No.
I remember in the old arcade days, someone had put out a Pong ripoff where instead of a paddle or a knob, it was just a pair of tits on the board. I don't know if they were made out of silicone or if they were squishy or if they were hard plastic or
there was
what.
also that there was that mod of the game. I think it was an electromechanical game called Big Deal that got modded into a game called Big Dick. You remember Big Dick, Levy?
Yes. I know all about Big Dick.
Have you ever seen one?
That was
honestly, I'm a fan. This sounds great.
I've seen photos of it. It was a novelty game. I think that was made for just a couple employees. Right. But it's decidedly hardcore pornographic in the art. And supposedly all the women on the backlash were people who worked at like Bally.
Oh my God!
Problematic.
If you want to take a trip down bizarro pornographic pinball memory lane, you might want to Google Zingy Bingy
for sure
and Big Dick. But Zingy Bingy supposedly
I've Googled Big Dick many times.
Of course. Supposedly the CEO of Capcom, I don't know if you've ever seen Gung Ho, but I picture it being kind of like that, where the car company guy comes over to see what these people are up to. And he just kind of silently, wordlessly, gets the pitch and then flies back to Japan and immediately pulls the plug on the pinball division. So that was the end of Capcom.
But they did get one game out. And
they didn't get it out. They produced 10 prototypes.
Right.
And they did make several games.
They did make there was a pool game, right? It was a
Break Shot, which is a throwback game. It's okay,
right.
They seem pretty well built, but it just was the wrong time to be trying to get on the gravy train.
Right.
But they got into the industry. It didn't work out. They got out. And the last thing they did, besides the Zingy Bingy prototype, which as far as I know, no longer exists, but somebody might have this thing in their basement somewhere in their sex dungeon.
Listeners, if you have access to the prototype of Zingy Bingy, we will offer you a bounty of $500.
I would pay $500 just to play one game. Just to play
a game of Zingy Bingy. You've heard it here first, folks.
But I don't think it even had a back box, so I don't think this game is too far along. I can only imagine the conversation that these guys had.
Oh, that's fucking awesome.
Flight back to the land of the rising sun.
let's talk about Big Bang Bar.
All right, so they did produce this prototype, which was brought to the Chicago Expo show and very well received. And it's this Big Bang Bar game. It's again a very adult themed game.
Yeah, pretty horny. It's pretty horny.
You get the joke. Okay. Big Bang Bar, but not Big Bang. Big Bang with the sex stuff.
Right.
It was an adult theme about kind of a Star Wars bar. And, there's drinking aliens, people get into fights, and it's pretty, it's an amusing game, and it is an adult themed game. It looks cool. I think it's pretty fun to play. I've played it.
Yeah, it's fun. There's the most memorable thing. If anybody remembers anything about Big Bang Bar, it's that there's a little tube in the middle of the play field that has this gyrating lady. And that's the toy that is really memorable in that game.
Yeah, it was kind of like the pole dancers in the Sopranos game.
Right.
And it had these cool aliens. Remember those aliens in Sesame Street with the sideways mouths that would torment Bert and Ernie? They kind of look like those, and those things turn around and you lock the ball in their big alien mouths.
It's a fun game.
It had a lot of humor in it, and it probably would have been a very well received game if it had reached production, which it never did. They only made a handful of prototypes, maybe a dozen. And I believe that most of these prototypes were bought off the floor of Expo for a fairly low price. I think people already knew the company was out of business at that point, and people bought these games. So you fast forward, 10 years, and these games are going for $25,000 on eBay if they ever come up. Which, back then even was a huge sum of money for a pinball machine. Yeah. I think one was lost in a fire or something. But this guy, Gene Cunningham, and again, I don't know all the nuts and bolts of this stuff, but he bought a ton of pinball stuff when Williams went out of business.
Yeah, he just had a fuckload of parts, right? Like just all the parts.
He was an eccentric rich guy who loved pinball, who bought all the parts. And he had all the Capcom stuff. And this included 125 Capcom board sets. And it included Big Bang Bar translates, and it included, I guess, Big Bang Bar paperwork. And I guess whatever had been made for this game. And sometime around 2005, he announces he's going to remake this game using the existing board sets. So he's only going to make 120 of them or whatever. They're going to cost, I believe, $4,500. You're going to send them your money now. You can send half the money now, and then when he says he's going to build it, you send the other half. This was kind of an unheard of concept, and I was intrigued. But at that point in my life, $4,500 was probably all I had, maybe half of my life savings, and it just didn't seem prudent to be sending it to some guy I didn't really know for some project that didn't sound like it had a lot of chances of success for me. I mean, this guy did not own a pinball factory.
And I remember, again, back then, I remember the buzz on RGP about it, and everybody being like, who the hell is this Gene guy?
People knew who he was, but
they knew who he was, but they didn't know if he could make it happen.
Right. Can this guy make pinball machines?
Right.
And it just seems really hard to make pinball machines. And but enough people were willing to give him his money that the run did sell out and not too much time. And it was really probably the first of these pinball pre-orders that have become so common over the last 10 years. I'm going to build something. I need your money to build it. Send me money and I'll build you.
They're pre-ordering even before any of the manufacturing has gone underway.
Yes.
So there's a lot of trust involved in that.
Oh, so much trust.
Hope. I don't know what it is. People wanted a Big Bang Bar and they didn't want to spend $25,000 for one. And you couldn't even just reach in your pocket and spend $25,000 for a Big Bang Bar. They weren't coming up for sales too often.
Right.
It's
a good thing no one's going to take advantage of this hope and goodwill.
Well, it's a long story and it took several years, but somehow I still don't know how this fucking guy pulled it off. They made every one of these pinball machines. It involved a lot of people doing a lot of stuff for free, I think, who wanted these games to get made. People flew to Illinois or wherever this guy, I think it was Illinois. His company was called Illinois Pinball, Gene's company. And people, it became a project that was driven still by, some diehards in the community. Guys who flew over there and helped put these games together by hand so they could get their games. And then as a result, everybody else got their games too. They made this thing happen. It took a few years. It happened. Nobody lost their money. Everybody got games, which are pretty damn good. I mean, they are playable games. They're reliable. Don't forget, he was using all the original boards. I don't know what they had to make. Play fields, some game-specific parts. I don't know if they had to make the plastics. They got all this stuff made. They had a game. Somebody lent them their Big Bang Bar, and they disassembled this thing and reverse engineered the entire game.
Just a pure, just the purest of passion projects, right? And that's also the thing that I think is worth noting is when you get passionate pinball people on a thing, they will not stop. Like, it is an all-consuming passion. That's really the only way to put it.
And it was fun to watch. You know, there were a year where you would hear nothing. And you were like, these guys have lost their money. This is never going to happen. This is exactly what the naysayers said would happen. You know, not everybody was like, yeah, I think it's a great idea. You dudes should send this money in.
And I'm trying to remember, did they because $4,500 a pop was the ask. Did they end up charging more once they shipped, or did they just eat it? Because that was nowhere near enough money, obviously.
It turned out to be no. Gene Cunningham lost a ton of money on this project. I don't know if they ever raised the price. You know, and he would have been smart to keep 10 of these for himself. You know, he could have made some money, but they were, I believe, when they did come out and they actually started showing them people's houses. You know, people were buying them off the loading dock. They were changing hands instantly. Sure. And I think the going rate was about $10,000 at that point.
Wow.
Oh my God.
What about now? What's the price on one of those now?
I haven't seen one for sale for a while, but I would guess 15 to 20 will probably get you a Big Bang bar.
So getting close to the price of like the originals.
Well, and I can't even tell you what an original
who knows what those are.
So just to then kind of frame this up, right? On the one hand, we now have, Big Bang Bar, the ultimate passion project, which somehow shipped. The guy who, did it lost a shitload of money on it, but, at the end of the day, he had the money to lose. So whatever, it's a net win for the pinball community, right? Additionally, we've got Jersey Jack out here, and they are now manufacturing games. Like after Wizard of Oz comes out, then I think it was The Hobbit was the next one, right? After that, which also shipped.
Right, Hobbit. And he's had, then he's got 2 games out, and then I guess the 3rd game was Dialed In. Right. So now he's got 3 games. So,
and Dialed In is, I think, a fucking great game. I love it.
It's a good game.
Does Gene start making more cabinets as well?
No. Gene loses all his money in the financial meltdown, and his collection goes to seed. And it's actually kind of a sad story. He died a few years after that. So don't forget, though, you're talking about, the other big winners in this were the people who took a chance and spent their $4,500 or $5,000 on a Big Bang Bar. They immediately. Dozens of them immediately made thousands of dollars.
I was going to say it's like a literal overnight 2x ROI, and then if you look at it over a longer
4 years,
I'm saying once it actually shipped, right? Like you were saying, they were buying them off the loading dock,
Yes, their patience and their faith was rewarded.
Right.
It was well rewarded. And a lot of people, I think, were lulled into a sense that this is easy to do.
Right.
This guy who didn't really know anything about pinball manufacturing was able to crank these things out. And he didn't know anything about pinball. He was just a rich enthusiast. And there you go.
Yeah, pretty incredible story.
So outside of that, we also have a couple other small scale players, which I don't think we really need to talk about at length, but you've got Spooky Pinball, which does some small limited runs, I think 300, 400 games per run or something like that.
They're up. Their latest game is in the 4 digits.
Okay.
They're a little different in that that's all more recent. I mean, you're talking last 5 years, really.
Right.
At this point, we have a number of viable pinball mechanics. Right. We have American Pinball, who just kind of came out of nowhere. And we've got Spooky, we've got Stern, we've got Jersey Jack, and you got a number of other kind of boutique guys starting to get going and taking pre-order money and doing the stuff we've seen a million times.
And at this point, obviously, the industry has pretty much completely flipped from how it was, even at the beginning of the millennium, where, it was the vast majority was going out to route and then a little bit to home collectors. At this point, when I say at this point, we're saying at this point being maybe about 5 years ago, this is now an industry that is driven by the home collector, right?
We'll never, I'm not in the industry. I don't see the books. We'll never really know what the breakdown is.
Sure.
But it sure seems like the majority of pinball machines are going to homes, and even the ones that are going locations. I mean, these locations now that have tons of pinball machines tend to be run by enthusiasts,
right?
who started a bar or started an arcade. So it really is more of an enthusiast-driven thing than an old-school operator business. And the arcades are still gone, more or less. It's all about bars now, barcades. If you're a kid and you want to go play 50 pinball machines, good luck finding a place to do it.
Yeah.
But there's some bars and places like that offer the opportunity.
So at this point, then, I feel like it would behoove us for you to sort of introduce us to one of the biggest players in what is going to now be the main event, a man named John Papaduke. Tell me about him.
All right. John Papaduke is a fairly late, he's a veteran at this point, but he was kind of a late comer to the game. He was a young designer. I don't know much about his past or how he ended up at Williams, but he started designing games for them in the mid 90s. His first project was World Cup Soccer, which you might have played. It's a fun game. It's a soccer themed game, for when the World Cup was in the States in 94. But you're going to see something here, which is kind of an interesting thing that you're going to see pop up again and again with this guy. In that the word on the street is that the game was taken away from him before it was completed due to it being over budget, behind schedule. And some of the old timers at Williams Valley finished it. And it was his first game. And he was stubborn. They said he was stubborn. He was tough to work with. And they needed to swoop in here and finish this game up for him and get it out. And it was a successful game.
Is that something that is common with first-time designers, or is that already a bit of a unusual thing?
This is the only time I've ever heard about that happen.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, maybe an industry guy could say, but that's the first time I've ever heard this happen. And the game came out, it was a success. They sold some, it made some money. And then he starts to make his own games. And these were kind of a different game that we'd seen. They were unlicensed. They were fantastical. They had a lot of, his thing is to take gimmicks from old 60s and 50s games that people haven't seen in decades and kind of reintroduce them into these newer games. You have Theater of Magic, which had magnets all over it. It has this cool spinning chess thing that you shoot. It's got really cool, it's a magic theme. It was supposed to be, I heard, a David Copperfield license, which they did not get.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it makes sense, right?
Yeah, Brian, have you ever played Theater of Magic? It's got the big box that spins around and you hit the box and that's how you start the multi-ball.
Yep, I have played that one.
I think it's a cool game. When it came out and I was in college, I was pretty hooked on it. Even then, I knew it was the golden age of pinball. I was playing like Addams Family, Creature, Theater Magic. I was like, these are the coolest games that will ever be. Yeah. I was under their spell, and even I knew that. I was like, I've been playing pinball for 10 years, and these are the best games. It's wild. I remember there were some Gottlieb games next to it, and I was like, these are terrible. I played one game, and then I was like back on Addams Family. So this game was good. I don't know if the whole industry is declining at this time, and I'm sure these games aren't selling as well, but it's not really his fault.
Right.
Then he makes Tales of the Arabian Nights. This has the spinning lamp on it, which is, again, stolen from 70s Williams EMs, like Triple Action. His games, they tend to not have the best rules for accomplished players. They're exploitable. You time out modes. They're not the best rule set games, but they are flashy games. And they have that kind of intangible magic that people later on would really gravitate towards.
And they're very accessible, too. If you're a first-time player, especially with a game like Totan, it's pretty easy to get your head around what it is that you need to do.
Or Theater Magic. You shoot the chest.
Shoot the box. Right.
And then, the other one was Circus. Voltaire was his game. And again, it's covered in purple and literal neon.
It's one of the coolest looking machines ever made, in my opinion. It's so cool.
Got this thing popping up, this Joker head that you shoot at. It's got magnets all over the place. It's very J-Poppy. That's his nickname. And this game did not sell. It didn't work on location. The ball got stuck all the time. They ended up blowing this game out for $1,800.
Would that I could have gotten one.
Everybody wishes they could have got. If you put new in box Circus Voltaires on sale right now for $1,800, you would sell about 10,000 of them. So that was pretty much the J-Pop story. He was also involved in the Pin 2K that you were talking about earlier. Right. It was his concept, I believe.
I didn't know that.
He had a version of the concept which didn't work as well, and they went with somebody else's version of the concept, I think. So that's pretty much it. He's out of the business. Williams is out of the business.
He's gone, but he's not out, right?
He's retired. He is not working for anybody.
But then
Stern is around for 10 years, and Stern, which employs a number of old school Williams guys. Surely, they hired Pat Lawler,
right?
Addams Family fame. They've hired Steve Ritchie, who's made a million great games. They had Lyman over there doing rules. They had a ton of Williams old timers.
But for some reason, John Papaduke doesn't come back. But then
he's on the street.
We do end up hearing about him, though, not too long after. And that comes in the form of a pitch for a game called Magic Girl.
I hate to tell you, there was one small thing before that.
Yes.
He managed to talk himself into getting hired by a toy manufacturer called Zizzle. Zizzle, under his stewardship, put out for about $500 a piece these basically toy pinball machines. Pirates of the Caribbean was one. I think they were all the same layout. You never heard of these Zizzles before?
No, I haven't.
Like little, like a tabletop kind of pinball?
They're bigger than that. They're modeled more on the 70s home models that Sears sold, like Bally Fireball and Evil Knievel. I would say they're about half size maybe of a real pinball machine.
Okay.
Maybe more analogous to those, the little like, I don't know, coffee table machines like Night Moves or something like that?
No, because they have legs, They're just little baby pinball machines. They got legs that you would put on when you take it out of the box.
Okay.
And this project, like it flopped. They were blowing these things out at one point at Best Buy for $50.
Nice.
But you still see them to this day, people selling them. And my favorite Zizzle gambit is when someone drags one of these things to a show to get in for free, and they put their Zizzle in on the free play area. like you'll go to Allentown and you'll be going down the row and you'll see a fucking little Zizzle machine there.
That rules. for those who are not familiar with the sort of these shows, by the way, most pinball shows you can get totally free admission so long as you bring at least one game of your own. That's a really nice way around that rule. I love that.
And it saves you like $20. I mean, you don't do it to get in for free. It's like
nobody's gonna buy it off of you. Nobody wants it. Like
you do it to give back and to try to sell some
That's
games.
right. That's right.
I've done it. I've dragged games to Allentown before. And, maybe sell them, maybe bring them back home. But that's the Zizzle story. It was not a success. And I'm sure it was all his idea. And I'm sure he pitched these guys on it. And I'm sure they lost a lot of money making Zizzle pinball machine. Now they tend to go for a few $100 actually. Which I still think is moronic to spend that kind of money on a Zizzle pinball machine. But look it up. There were people on RGP who I swear to Christ were excited about these Zizzle games. It's like, J-Pop's getting back into the game? Like, I know they're toys, but what kind of magic does he have in store for us?
Pinball magic!
It turns out it was just a toy. They weren't. They're stupid little games. So again, the J-Pop story ends once again until. Do you want to leave this in or?
No, you go for it, man, because I actually don't remember exactly how this whole thing came about. I just remember hearing about Magic Girl and a whole bunch of people immediately becoming suckers, because that seems to always be what happens in these situations.
First came the announcement. J-Pop, John Pop, the legend. And I'll just very quickly, I'll share you my personal thoughts on J-Pop. I don't think there's a single legend in pinball that is built on such a shaky foundation. I mean, this guy made like 4 games, and most of them kind of blow if you're actually a good player. They didn't sell. They didn't make money for Bally Williams. They didn't make money for operators. There's really not, and they didn't succeed. Like they were, he was a steward during the death of pinball, and but there are people who think this guy is a legend, and they were very excited when he announced to the world that he's going to make 15 games. I'm sorry, 1 game, but he's going to make 15 of them or 20 of them. A very small, limited amount of games. Magic Girl. It's going to be the concept speaks for itself. It's a magic girl. Brian has a very stupefied expression.
If we got to this, what year is this?
2010 or so, maybe. This is probably right after the Jersey Jack thing started, and it's proven that people will pay more money for. I mean, Stern games were selling for about $4,000 at this time, and I believe the launch price of the Wizard of Oz was maybe $6,000.
Sounds right.
Which turned out to be way too low, and because he was losing money on every game, and they raised it maybe another $1,000.
And so now we've also got Magic Girl coming in.
We've got Magic Girl, and he's got a really splashy website, and it's got all the whimsical J-pop shit everybody loves. It's got art that's stolen from somebody else that he didn't have anything to do with. That is super magical. It's got flaming magic balls flying at you. It's got a hot chick with a giant rack who's obviously magical, and the
magic actually comes from her boobs. That's why she's so magical.
Generates this magic from her chest, and it's gonna be it's pitched as this magic pinball experience. that is going to be J-pop Unchained. You know,
Right.
he's finally going to free from the corporate overlords over at Williams Valley. It's so funny because now everybody thinks, you know, Gary Stearns was cheap Jews trying to screw them, and he won't put the magic in the games that they want. All these old timers who worked at Williams said the exact same shit about Bally Williams. Steve Ritchie,
Right.
Steve Ritchie, who just left Stern to go to Jersey Jack, and is now complaining about, you know, trashing everybody he worked with for the last 15 years at Stern, said the same shit about Williams after that whole thing collapsed. They're bean counters over there. They're always watching the bill of material. They're crushing my dreams. That's why you don't put guys like this in charge of
Right.
a pinball company.
Right.
Because the point of the pinball company is to make money. You know?
Yeah,
That's
if you're not making money, you can't stay in business. And to that
Right.
point about making money, Brian, you know a thing or two. I mean, you're not an economics expert or anything, but I know you know a thing or two about economics. I'm curious.
Buy low, sell high.
Yeah, so I'm curious. Like you hear something about, like, you know, we're going to do an ultra limited run of 15 to 20 games, and it's going to be the coolest pinball machine you've ever seen.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all.
It's not gonna be cheap.
unless you're selling it for like $100,000 or something. Like
You're not. You're selling it for, I believe, $15,000 or
Oh,
maybe
yeah,
$12,000.
God.
So he had this little graphic. I still remember it. I tried to find it on the Wayback Machine, but it seems to be scrubbed from history. He had this little page like for sale, you know, to buy. And there were these tiny little rabbits, like the rabbits you pull out of a hat. And if the rabbit was gray, it showed that rabbit was sold. So there were like 20 of these rabbits. And every day there's fewer rabbits.
Ooh.
And you're losing your opportunity. And I swear, as God is my witness, I swear I'm like, holy shit, am I missing the boat on this? Am I, you know, I should have gone in on
that's
that.
such a great little like tantalizing detail to be like, it's counting down.
I don't want to miss out on this
Right.
rabbit. And there's only 5 or 6 of these fucking things left. And, you know, these aren't like real rabbits. They're not going to fucking sprout out a bunch of more rabbits. There's only 15 of these things that are going to get made. It's the most exclusive. You know, this is your chance. This is your chance to get the original Big Bang Bar. There's going to be 15 of them. We're all going to retire off of these magic girls. And for about 10 minutes, I'm like, you know, they pulled it off with Big Bang Bar. They made it look easy. This guy was in the industry, you know, and I didn't know the backstory necessarily about all the stuff that about his entire career. I just know that here's a guy who made these cool games. He's been in the industry. He's making this pitch. He knows what he's doing. And, you know, some people are going to get these magic girls and it's going to be a dream come true. And do I want to be one of them? At this point, I had probably now doubled my life savings to about $10,000, which is probably enough to put down the initial deposit on the magic girl. He was asking.
And by the way, it's worth noting at this point, this is fully, you need to pay the full amount up front, right? Or at least much of it?
Not true. I think.
Okay.
Honestly, again, as years have gone by and people have told their stories, I think he was just, if you wanted to send him $2,000, you could send him $2,000.
Okay.
If you wanted to send him $5,000, you could, the key is send him money.
Send money.
And when the game is done, you're going to pay the balance.
Right. Okay.
So anyway, you know, I'm not a Magic Girl aficionado expert in that I don't know all the twists and turns about it. All I know is 4 years later, he still hadn't really produced much except some pictures of his factory, parts bins, you know, pictures of the parts he made, like a pop bumper, the art that, you know, he really had nothing to do with. And finally, I do know that in 2014, you know, the natives are starting to get a little restless.
Right.
He'd also at this point ask people for more money. You know, he'd hit them up for their full remaining balance.
Right.
And he'd also started to go off in strange tangents. Hey, guess what? I might make this Kiss game. Out of nowhere, he built out of foam core. He loves making things out of foam. He made if you just looked at this, you'd be like, wow, this is a working pinball machine. I mean, it was made out of balsa wood and foam, and it had a ton of LEDs in it. And it was Kiss. It was the rock band Kiss in all of its glory. And it looked pretty cool. It had more stone artwork from Zombie Yeti, who one of the good things about this is this guy found permanent employment in the pinball industry. I think he's Stern's only full-time artist at this point.
So this artist's name is Zombie Yeti?
I don't know what his real name is, but that's his trade name.
Is he also the one who worked on Magic Girls art? Or
yes, he worked on all the J-pop stuff. And
I was gonna say, I just Googled Magic Girl and I was like, I like it. I like the way it looks.
It's nice. It's cool nice looking art.
But
so
Also, taking a step back as well, you know, I just did the crunch the numbers real quick on my calculator. We're talking about trying to execute something without any real pre-existing capital. 15 games at $15,000 a piece is only $225,000. That is not a lot of money.
You're not the first person to say that. And there were always skeptics. And there were people like, you know, there's no way that this could be a profitable venture for this guy, much less actually doing it. Like, could this money actually pay to start a pinball machine company from scratch? And we, you know, there were, you know, we didn't know. Maybe a guy had some money, you know, maybe he's a financial genius. In between about 2011 or so, when he starts taking money for this thing, and 2014, when his big reveal of his progress came at Pinball Expo, he somehow finds the time to make this KISS pinball machine mock-up. He really wanted to make a KISS pinball machine. Very short side. I don't know if there's any KISS aficionados here, but the artwork was scab KISS. It was Paul and Gene and the two scabs they hired to replace Peter Criss and Ace Frehley. And any hardcore KISS fan is going to want not the scab KISS.
Yeah, of course not.
Right. So that decision just,
that's
I always wondered, if you're going to make a non-licensed foam fake KISS game and get some guy to do the art and then not pay him, why would you do the scabs?
So
anyway,
beyond that, you know, this then, as I recall, it continues for a while.
Well, it wasn't just the KISS game. He also announces, you know what? It's not really feasible to make 15 of these games. Now I'm going to make 100. So send me more money.
Right.
And so more people sent him money. I believe there were no rabbits, like gradient fill rabbits at this point. Yeah. It was just, at this point, he's just saying, send me money. And I'll send you a little coupon with a super whimsical, like, you know, like at Coney Island at the freak show, there's like that fist or the hand pointing to the egress. It was all whimsical, cutesy bullshit like that. And it was like a whimsical hand from the 1800s from P.T. Barnum pointing to $2,000, please remit your balance. So he was sending
this
coupons
is going to
out.
turn into a Kickstarter at some point, doesn't it?
I wish it had, you know. It would have been a more spectacular. So that's not good enough either. And now, you know what? There's another concept. He's going to make a zombie game. Because zombies were huge in the early 2000s. In the early 2010s. Zombies were huge. And Walking Dead's the #1 show. He doesn't like zombies. He likes fucking magic. Right. So he gets, you know, and you guys being gamers know who Ben Heck is. Do you guys know who Ben Heck is?
I know who Ben Heck is. Yeah.
You know Ben. I didn't know who he was, but apparently he's a big shot in like the home brew. He made his own pinball machine too. He made the Bill Paxton pinball machine. Yeah.
Ben Heck is he's a very, very, he's incredibly talented when it comes to electronics. He is sort of the guy who you call if you come across a very unusual or rare piece of video game technology and you need somebody to take it apart and put it back together. Finding out what's going on with it electronically. So when one of the very, very rare Sony PlayStation prototypes came about, like the Sony PlayStation that was hooked up to the Nintendo, remember like the Nintendo PlayStation? That was Ben Heck got his hands on that. And
actually, what do you think about that? You impressed now?
That's pretty amazing. I'm staring at Bill Paxton pinball right now.
Ben made this like in his basement and it's kind of cool. It's, you know, it's like, you know, so somehow, I don't even know how this happened. Somehow he gets hooked up with J-Pop. J-Pop finds him on YouTube and is like, this is a guy who will fall under my spell and do a bunch of free work for me. So he flies him out to Chicago, where Ben probably flew himself out there and probably paid for everything. And all of a sudden, we got a new announcement. Ben Heck's zombie.
That's right.
Adventureland is going to come out.
I remember that too, because I was following his channel on YouTube at the time, and it was a big announcement, right? Because Ben Heck's YouTube channel was a big deal for a while. I don't think he does that channel anymore, but yeah.
My two questions at this point were, why is this guy working on another game that doesn't exist when he's got all these people's money for this magic girl? And two, who is Ben Heck? Those were my two big questions. And why is he on a pinball machine? No slight to Ben. I just didn't know who he was.
So before even shipping Magic Girl, we now have like 3 tables that are being made.
The Kiss thing, I guess he just did as a lark because a month later, Stern announces that, no, we have the Kiss license and we're going to make Kiss pinball machine. So God knows how much, I guess his idea was wow them with maybe that's why he went, honestly, that might be why he went with the scabs. He's like, wow, Kiss, build this foam core light up box. Wow, Kiss. With
maybe at the very last minute, he'll win the license over Gary kind of thing.
Yeah.
He wasted God knows how much time on this Kiss. It had great art. Again, it was, he got Zombie to whip this up for free for him. So you got these three. And then at some point, he announces, I'm also making Alice in Wonderland. So send me money for that. And here's the kicker. People are still sending him money. They're just sending him money. And at this point, the chorus...
There's going to be so many pinball machines. You won't even know how many pinball machines we're working on.
It should be huge, these pinball machines. We're going to be making so many pinball machines. And at this point, people are pretty disgruntled with Stern, too. Like, you could spend $7,000 and get a Wizard of Oz that's going to break in a week. Which is what people did. Or you can spend $4,000 and get a Rolling Stones game, which everybody hates. And again, this is what it comes back to, is it's mostly about theme for people.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And what you might start noticing with all this magic bullshit is these are not themes that anybody really is going to want outside of some hardcore, like, I know who J-pop is. It's the paradigm has shifted. People don't want these kind of quirky, unlicensed games that Williams and Bally was having such success with back in the old days. Cyclone, Pinbot, High Speed, Diner. These are kind of fishtails. These are kind of neat things that were big and successful. But
in many cases, too, I remember with Bally Williams, many of those games would sort of be taking something that was sort of in the pop culture whatever you want to call it, and making an unlicensed theme, but something that is still sort of connected to what a lot of people are talking about.
Yeah, like Medieval Madness.
Yeah, Medieval Madness is Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
It's recognizable.
And Attack from Mars is Mars Attacks, right?
It's a funny thing. It came out at the same time as the movie, but it's really not. They're both just kind of homages to this 50s sci-fi thing. But again, it maybe was 25 years ago, but it might as well have been 100 years ago, because people today do not want unlicensed games. They say they do, and then they don't buy them.
And they don't earn on route either. Like Walking Dead is a kick-ass route game. It's a okay game to play, but it does insanely well on route, is my understanding.
But Dialed In is a great game, and they didn't sell any of them for home users, and it doesn't make money on location. Why would it? It's like SimCity with cell phone. It's a bizarre theme. It doesn't really cohere. The game's great, but that's not what people want. But J-pop knew what they wanted, and they wanted Alice in Wonderland. They wanted Ben Heck's retro atomic zombie Adventureland.
That's right.
Bill Paxton zombies.
Yeah, it was basically a theme park, and then you've got Ben Heck running around in it. And there's zombies. So
everybody wants that.
People are still sending this guy money, but the natives are starting to get a little restless. I paid you for a Magic Girl 4 years ago, and now you're working on Alice in Wonderland. And, there were definitely people, the word Ponzi started to get back, but the pushback was like, you're a fucking idiot. You're a naysayer. You can't see the magic. Look at what they did with Big Bang Bar. You're a hater. Like, people were getting shouted down pretty regularly for naysaying on this stuff. J-pop knows more about pinball than you'll ever wipe out of your ass. It's like, this is, and I wasn't really involved in any of this. I was just kind of watching it from afar, thinking, but the general thing that I'm glad I didn't send this guy any money is what I was thinking by this point. So I think it was about 2014. He shows up to Expo, which is this big pinball show. It's even during the lean years, it remained the largest show, I think. And it's still around.
And that's in Chicago.
It's in Chicago, the bedrock of the industry. Okay.
And there's also you can go and you can take a tour of the Stern factory. Like, there's all these things that happen in conjunction with Expo. It's really
people would show up with their new games. They'd show up with the 1 year, like in 1999, the one game to show up was the one game available, which I think was Striker Extreme. So it's like, as long as that would have been right
after Pinball 2000 failed.
A total trivia, but I believe the Black Monday was the Monday after Expo when it was announced that Williams was going out of business.
Oh, wow.
And nobody knew. Williams had been at Expo. Like the guy, the Williams guys had been there, and the next day they pulled the plug on. So that was probably the biggest disappointment in Expo history up until 2014, when the curtain is drawn back and J-Pop reveals 4 empty cabinets of Magic Girl.
Seriously?
Yes, you can. I'm sure this is all out there if you want to find pictures of it. He does a seminar where he tells you how awesome this game is going to be, and he shows you these. And these are cabinets with the artwork and the flipper buttons. I think there was no play field, there was no display, and there was a translate, so you could get an idea of what the pinball magic cabinet would look like. And I've asked people who are much more steeped in this whole story than I am, and that apparently was the moment where the alarms that you were ringing as we started this thing all went off. And people really started to, everybody was like, okay, so if he's this far along on Magic Girl, I wonder how far along he is on my Alice in Wonderland, which we haven't even seen color artwork for.
Oh my God.
At least, and also at this time, it's no longer Ben Heck's Retro Atomic Zombie Adventure Cyclone Pinball Amusement Theme Land. Ben Heck has divorced himself from the project. He's, I guess at this point, figured out that this was a bad thing for him to be putting his name on. And now there were aliens involved somehow. And it was now called Retro Atomic Zombie Adventureland. I think that's what he sold.
Yep.
So people weren't even getting what they paid for. The second group of people who'd been scammed on this weren't even getting the game that they signed up for. And they were all rationalizing, look, you know what, kind of like aliens better than zombies. Like there's a lot of this stuff. Like, Ben Heck's cool, but I don't really need him on my pinball machine.
As long as you got that pinball magic, right?
Well, yeah, it's still kind of like that. You know, we've seen maybe some art, some prototype play fields, but I mean, at this point, anybody could pretty much see what was going on, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
So
I feel like this would be a really good time to take a quick break. We will return momentarily to find out how, of course, not to give it away, but of course this game shipped to rapturous applause, and everything had a happy ending forever. And right, Levi?
It was an unqualified success, which I'll be happy to tell you about when you come back.
All right, cool.
Hey, listeners, do you hate commercials?
Getting back into it, at this point, John Papaduke has taken the pinball world by storm with his incredible creation Magic Girl and also 3 other games, which all are naturally going to ship by their expected date at their expected price. Right, Levi?
No, unfortunately, this is where the story takes a nasty turn.
What?
This is where things start to get a little sad. People are now at this point starting to panic. They're talking class action lawsuit.
Oh, boy.
There's a handful of I told you so's who are obviously pretty gleeful about the whole thing.
Right. And this is all unfolding on Pinside, the world's bitchiest forum.
Yes, it's not pretty. But again, you're still seeing people getting thrown out of threads and banned for being critical about the whole thing.
Sure.
The denial was intense, and it was loud. But as the next year or so, it's really not, at this point, it doesn't take a long time for this whole thing to unravel. It finally ends with a email from John. Somebody posted it, and it was pretty infuriating to read. It was like, hey, it turns out pinball machines are really hard to make. At this given time, I'm not going to be able to fulfill. It was a very long sentence that boiled down with a lot of word salad. And even some whimsy and magic, just to give you your money's worth. It was a very long paragraph, which basically said, this project is tits up. You're not getting your games, and you're not getting your money.
So at this point, everybody who backed it is pretty much shit out of luck, right? I mean... And
I'd love to try to wrap this up for you in the future. There was some kind of optimism at the end. So enter I don't even know his real name. Maybe it's Bill Brandis. I apologize, Bill, or whatever your name is, but he's another pinball enthusiast millionaire, and he's on Pinside. And he announces he's going to swoop in to save this. This is one of many times that the Magic Girl, Raza, Alice in Wonderland buyers had the football peanut style taken away from them right when they were going into the field goal. And Bill announces, you know what? I think we can do this. All you got to do is sign this thing, which is, you're not going to sue us. You're not going to sue John. We're going to fix this. I'm a rich guy. You can trust rich guys.
Yeah, obviously.
Right.
That goes without saying.
And I don't want to stretch this too much, but it seems to me that, this was a particular time in America where people were really impressed by rich guys, people who thought were rich guys, and they just couldn't do anything wrong. And you know what? If you want everything to go your way, if you want to make pinball great again, you're just going to follow the rich guys. Because you know what? Sure, this doesn't look right, but these guys are rich. They know what they're doing. You're not rich. You don't know what you're doing. Send these guys money. They know what to do with it because they're rich.
Right. And this is really around what year is this now? Where are we in time?
Right around the time Donald Trump ran for president.
Right. Yeah. And so there's this collective psychosis that's gripping the nation right now, right? Where everybody has exhausted their desire for hope and change. Right. And at this point, they are instead seeking an ironclad return on their investment.
And more importantly, a rich savior to deliver the magic. I don't want to put Bill in this category. He was just an enthusiastic with some money who thought he could save this thing. And he was one of, I think he was one of the Raza buyers. He probably had money. Some of these guys had bought all three of these games. Holy shit. I'm not just getting Magic Girl. I'm getting Retro Zombie, Ben Heck. At this point, you're what, probably 40K in the hole?
I
would like to think nobody was that deep. I don't know how many people, I don't know if people were paid. I've heard rumors of people that were 20K deep into this scam,
sure.
But I really don't know. What I do know is J-Pop had been paying himself for years a very exorbitant salary. He owned a new Range Rover. Things seem to be okay in J-Pop land. The words wow, Ponzi's team, Madoff, this stuff was starting to get mentioned at this point. There were still people no, this guy's a genius. He just needs to be managed. That's where Bill came in because he's a rich guy. He knows how to manage people. Bill sent an advanced team, I guess, to Chicago to pick up the working Magic Girl prototype. At this point, the game had a play field. It had a display. It had boards. It looked like a pinball machine. And at this point, they had a plan in place. It's here's how we're going to get you your games. You're going to have to send us more money. And this wasn't a scam. Of course. This was just we need more money to pull this thing over the finish line. In return, you're going to get credit for the next 6 games. Honestly, I don't know what Bill was thinking. I guess he just was kind of under the spell, and he thought, and again, he was sold a bill of goods from J-Pop. The game's this close to being finished.
It's so interesting too, the way that people continued to fall under, as you put it very, very aptly, this spell. Time and time again, you have people who I think probably would otherwise, for the most part, setting aside the people in the pinball community who are suckers, and there are a lot of suckers in the community, and I think we might talk about that a little bit later. By and large, though, you have people who are having promises that are being made to them in what seems like good faith. They are going along with it, and the ride that they're being taken on just keeps getting longer and longer and longer.
Well, this happens in every Ponzi scheme, doesn't it?
Right. Yeah.
You get more promises and more opportunities to spend money. And at this point, I don't think they took any money because a week later, Bill sends another letter. He's like, look, we got into this prototype. This game is nowhere ready to be finished. You're all fucked. And so am I. And I'm not involved in this anymore. He had already spent, God knows, $1 million of his own money to get to this point. He had bought the IP. He basically bought out J-Pop. And, I'm sorry if I'm not getting all these details 100%, but I believe he was now the legal owner of all these fantastical games that he'd been promising people. But the problem is there's no games. You own the IP, but you also own the promise, right? And that's the promise has been made for a very long time. You own all the baggage. What he didn't do was take the additional money they needed because he just him and his team got into this prototype and were like, this is a non-starter. And he pulled the plug on it pretty quick. And he sent out a cold water email to everybody. I did my best. I lost hundreds of thousands of dollars of money, and this is not going to happen. And I got hoodwinked by J-Pop, who told me that this could happen if I just, bought this from him. And meanwhile, J-Pop's got money to cover his debts to buy another Range Rover.
Where did that money come from?
It came from Bill, who gave him money to finish this project. Because Bill was a rich enthusiast who wanted this to happen.
Yeah.
Kind of in the vein very much of Gene Cunningham, who we talked about earlier.
Correct. And people are still thinking, hey, if this one guy in Illinois could do it, I'm sure in this modern time of 3D printing entire pinball machines, this can be done. Unfortunately, Bill's take on it was this can't be done, and it's really over this time. I'm sorry, guys, but it's not going to happen. So
right.
There it ends. The people start talking lawsuits. I believe there were lawsuits. There was some kind of class action getting going. Don't forget, a lot of these people had money, and a lot of these people had lawyers, and a lot of these people knew how the game is played, and that when you're pissed off about something, you sue. I don't know what they were planning on getting out of them. There were some people who just wanted to see him go to jail at this point.
Right.
But it wasn't clear. It can be tough to get people sent to jail for stuff like this. And I think what we're looking at was pretty small potatoes. I mean, this was not a Bernie Madoff scam. Right. How much money did he steal? $1 million?
And also, like, at this point, yeah, it is essentially Ponzi, right? You're borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, but at this point, it still feels like, the scam of somebody who doesn't understand how to manage money or make promises effectively, as opposed to like a scam with actual criminal intent, where you're setting out to like defraud people intentionally. At this point, it seems to just be incompetence.
It does, but you have a lot more people who are thinking this guy is just a criminal. Or maybe it got away from him and he realized this a while ago. And I don't know what people thought, but people were pissed. And the story was over again. Somebody made this website, so if you Google John Papaduke, this is what you would see. Right. So imagine everybody's surprise when, and my timeline at this point gets a little fuzzy because it's been quite a 5 or 6 years we've been through.
It's been a journey. At
this point, out of nowhere, suddenly a new player arrives on the scene. It's American Pinball, and they're outside of Chicago. And this is a new pinball company, and they're teaming up with J-Pop. And not only are they going to finish these Magic Girls for the hundreds of people who bought them, they're going to build a new game called Houdini, which is right up.
It's magic. It's magic.
It's literally magic. And he shows up at this Vegas hotel room with a beautiful Houdini pinball machine.
Right.
And the press is that we're these rich guys. We're starting a new pinball company. I was immediately distrustful of these guys. And I will admit that I was wrong. I was like, these are just some rich assholes who are trying to jump on this gravy train. Because all during this time, pinball prices continue to skyrocket. The bubble has not burst, despite the dozens of weekly predictions that it's going to burst any minute now.
Right.
The pinball renaissance has continued unabated for almost 20 years. There's more and more people spending more and more money. By this point, the average price of a Stern pinball machine is about $5,000 for Pro, about $7,000 for Premium. People are spending $9,000 on limited editions. Jersey Jack has a 12.
And by the way, worth noting, like that splitting out of SKUs between Pro, Premium, LE is not something that they did before. This is a concession that they made to the home collector market.
Right.
Nobody's buying an LE to put it on route.
For sure. And this came about when their new investors bailed Stern out at the turn of the 10s. They had new investors come in with new ideas. One of these ideas is you're leaving money on the table. Look what Jersey Jack is doing.
Sure.
And so pinball prices are rising, demand is rising, and membership in the hobby is rising. And here comes American Pinball. They're going to put out the Magic Girl games, and they're going to also bring in this awesome new J-pop game, Houdini, which looks like it's ready to go. Now, you're not allowed to touch it. There is a fence around it, so you can only get about 5 feet away.
Of course.
But it's just another fucking flashing box of lights that J-Pop made when it should have been finishing Magic Girl. They seem to realize that something pretty quick was up with this guy.
Right.
And that maybe the trend of that they just displayed a box of balsa wood that was supposed to be a pinball machine, and maybe that this was kind of resembling some of the stuff that the community was so pissed off at this guy about. And they announced pretty quickly that they're cutting their ties with him, but not before he cobbles together 15 or 20 working, quote, Magic Girl pinball machines for the original Gray Rabbit 20. Like, after all this time in the sparkling new American Pinball facility, after all this time, we're talking almost 10 years at this point. After all this time, maybe 6, 7 years, after all this time, the original Magic Girl 18 that clicked on that website, that filled in their rabbit, they're getting their pinball machines.
Let's go.
Now, you're gonna have to go pick it up or get someone to do it. But you're getting your fucking pinball machine. So these Magic Girl games start to filter out into the world. I think AP was still signed on with him at this point, but obviously probably having some second thoughts. And people got their Magic Girls. They didn't work. You couldn't play a ball on Magic Girl. There were shops. There were shops that went to nowhere. There were
magnets were they were a nightmare, right? The magnets the
game literally didn't work. You could not play a game of it. There were ramps. There were ramps there was an upper playfield that the ball couldn't get to unless you put the ball on, took the glass off. And this shows you how fucking moronic the pinball hobby can be. There were people buying these for $20,000. There were rumors that a couple of them went for $30,000 or $40,000. And the reasoning was at this point, hey, we'll just finish them up. We'll hire the original software guy who never got paid.
How hard can it be?
How hard can it be?
OP will finally deliver.
I got to be honest with you. I don't know what happened with these Magic Girls. I know that people were streaming them. And it was just like such a joke.
That's awesome.
It's like, you could see there was a guy in Jersey who bought one, and they're like, "We're going to stream it. We're going to take it out of the boxes." And you could literally see this guy's face as they tried to play a game of Magic Girl.
It's a Skinner box, right? Like it's a beautiful. It's this thing that is special and flashy and beautiful, and inside it's bupkis. Like it just doesn't work.
That being said, the original Gray Rabbit 18, who paid their money and went through this entire drama, they got something for their money, and most of them, I don't know if anybody kept theirs, but a number of them flipped these for a profit. As ridiculous as it sounds, there was a market for these.
Well, because it is a collector item in a collector hobby that increasingly is becoming more and more uncoupled from the fundamentals. Right? It is a speculative market.
This game did not have a shooter lane groove. Do you know what that is? Brian doesn't know.
Brian,
that's right where the ball starts, right? When
the ball comes out of the thing, and then you got a plunger to plunge the ball out. Yeah. There's a little groove in it, so the ball will go straight up the shooter lane. It's in every pinball machine ever built over the last every years.
Every single one.
But not this one. This had a flat shooter lane. So you plunge it and the ball would just rattle around. Like have you ever seen those kids' birthday parties where they kind of put the foam in the gutter so these kids can't throw gutter balls? Yeah. That's like kind of what this shooter lane was like. So was a little that was kind of a sign of what you were getting there with the pinball machine. It didn't work. It really hadn't come too far, but he cobbled these things together and put them out. Shortly after this happens, American Pinball is like, you know what? If this isn't working out, we're going to go our separate ways. Right. We're going to make Houdini anyway.
And they ended up shipping it, and it was a success.
It was a success. I don't think it's a very good game, but they redesigned it. They got Balser, the guy who did Wizard of Oz and Simpsons. Oh, okay. They brought him in. They brought an actual professional who knew how to make a pinball machine in. And they redid the artwork, they redid the layout, and they actually put this game out. And it is a pinball machine you can buy to this day. And
so this is like totally different than what their original,
except for the concept and the title. Yeah, kind of a steampunk Houdini. They kept the concept, they made their own thing, and J-Pop was now out in the wilderness again. And never to be heard from again.
Exactly. I'm assuming at this point, given his track record, both in the context of Magic Girl specifically and, with his reputation more broadly in the industry, I'm sure that nobody ever gave him money again, right?
Yeah, it was over. He was, it wasn't going to play out before our eyes again. And, American Pinball, they proved that one of the best things you can do in pinball to manufacture pinball machines is get rid of J-Pop. And then, I think they're on there. They made 3 games now. So they appear to be a viable pinball manufacturer.
So from here, then, let's talk about a man named, this is a new guy. This is a new character now.
New guy just dropped.
Put listeners, put John Papaduke in the back of your head. He will be back. Much like James Bond, John Papaduke will return. But until then, let's introduce a brand new guy. His name is Robert Mueller.
Robert Mueller. Now,
he was investigating Donald Trump and Russia.
Yeah, it's funny. It was right after that whole thing that started. We're talking. I don't really remember. I think we're talking 2016, 2017. This guy Mueller shows up, and he doesn't just show up. He goes on all the he does all the interviews, all the podcasts. You don't know who I am, but I'm starting a new company. It's called Deeproot Pinball. I'm bringing in J-Pop. We're going to fix everything. We're going to make the Magic Girl games. And then we're going to make 10 other games. And not only are we going to make games, they're going to be better than any games you've ever seen in your life.
They're going to be the best games.
They're going to be the best
You
games.
won't believe these games. Not
only are these games going to be good, and not only are we going to make 15 of them in 1 year, more than anybody has ever made in a year. We're going to, I'm a pinball guy just like you guys, and I'm sick of the shit that Stern is serving us on a steaming platter. They suck. The games are garbage. Right. Everybody who works there only cares about money. I'm like you, except I'm rich. And I'm going to make the world's greatest pinball she's ever seen. And it's all going to start with J-Pop. I know there's a history with this guy. He acknowledged it. I know there's a history with this guy, but he just needs to be managed by a brilliant millionaire like myself, a guy who's rich, so you can trust me, a guy who knows how to make money. I alone can fix this. That was his pitch. I don't know if you've ever heard that before. But, and you know what? There's a lot of skeptics now. Like, really, we're giving J-Pop another chance. And meanwhile, all the people who lost money on this are like, holy shit, I cannot believe it. After the Bill Brandis thing, after that last attempt, because he was rich too. And rich people are smart. They know what they're doing. And he told us, look, I'm sorry, this is not going to happen. I'm not sinking any more of my money into it. That's why I'm rich, because I don't throw millions of dollars into black holes like this. Incidentally, that was one of the titles they were going to make. A new black hole version was one of the promised.
Wait, like black hole, the old.
Yeah, we're going to make a new version of it. That was the titles to be announced, but it's going to be kind of like black hole. By the way, going back to a previous theme, black hole. One of the features of that game, a playfield under the playfield. A lower playfield innovation. That's what people want 40 years later is lower playfield innovation. So. And I'm not going to take any pre-order money. I know you guys have been down this road before. I know you don't want somebody soliciting money before a game's ready to ship. Never going to happen at Deeproot Pinball. I'm a successful funds manager. I'm rich. If you don't
believe how successful I am in my funds, take a look at this fund that I manage.
Yes, take a look at the untold wealth I'm delivering for my investors. And I'm going to take this magic touch that made me rich. A rich guy in his late 30s, early 40s. I have the golden touch, and I'm bringing it to pinball. I'm one of you, and I'm an enthusiast, and I'm not going to take any pre-order money. I'm not going to announce this game before it's ready to ship. All the mistakes of the past, they're not going to happen again. He insulted the entire industry, said they're all morons. None of them know what they're doing. All you guys on Pinside are morons who say I can't do this. Everybody's stupid but me. And if you believe in me, I will make your dreams come true. I know you want to see innovation, and I'm going to deliver it. And I'm going to do it with J-Pop. I'm going to bring every other out-of-work wash-up off the street. I'm going to bring out Barry Orsler, who hasn't made a game since, I think, the Clinton administration. And then there's Dennis Nordman, who seems to work for every single pinball machine company at the same time. He made a lot of great games in the old days, and then he's working for Stern.
Which, by the way, Nordman, you might know, probably if you know him from anything, it's probably Dr. Dude, right? That'd probably be the game he's best known for.
Scared Stiff, all the Elvira games are his.
Okay, I know Elvira. I know at least one of the Elvira games.
All the Elvira games, Indy 500. He's made a lot of good games. And immediately people are like, well, these guys wouldn't get involved in Deeproot unless it was a legit enterprise. I'm like, are you out of your mind? Like Barry Orsler he doesn't have any money, and he is working there because he's getting a check.
I remember hearing the name Deeproot for the first time and being like, I wouldn't trust a company called Deeproot.
And the logo is like a butthole with it seriously looks like a butthole.
It does look like a butthole.
The name makes no fucking sense. The Australians chime in and are like, down here, Deeprooting means getting fucked. Literally. That's apparently what Deeproot means in Australia is to get really fucked.
But people are still extraordinarily credulous, despite at this point 2 solid decades of experience that should make them know better. They're still buying into the dream, and they're buying into the magic, and they're ready to make pinball great again.
But they got Magic Girl. They got Magical Girl. It happened.
Only 18 people got Magical Girl, and they didn't work. And the other 200 people who sent J-Pop money were holding the bag. So it wasn't, the Magic Girl story did not really end well, except for the 10 people who managed to cash out. Those guys are smart. If that thing had showed up in my house, I would have sold it immediately. I'm like, am I getting $10,000 on this piece of shit? Sign me up. There's maybe before they find out there's no shooter lane groove.
But I guess what I'm wondering is like, because, you were obviously like around in the community at that time when everybody was going like head over heels for this shit.
At this point, I'm really paying attention to because it's like.
So I guess what I'm wondering is like, you were seeing this happen. You were like, no, obviously this is bullshit. Like, I'm not going to buy into this shit for the fourth time. But for some reason, everybody else is.
Well, that's not true. There were a lot of
not everybody.
There were a lot of naysayers, but the people who were blown away by this stuff, for the most part, they were all noobs who were just dazzled by this whole thing. And they're like, they really wanted their fucking innovative pinball machines. They're still tired. Gary Stern, that cheap Jew, is still forcing these shitty games down my throat.
Right.
And he won't give us the innovation. Every time they keep raising prices. Meanwhile, a Stern game is still by far the cheapest commercial, full feature, full size pinball machine you can buy for your home. You can still get a Stern Pro game, and they're all good, solid games you can get for $5,500.
And that's because obviously, like, they've been around, so they have supply chains and they have economies of scale and they have these things that are necessary in order to produce something in volume at a reasonable cost.
Right. And if you want an American pinball game, that's going to be $1,000. If you want a spooky game, that's going to be $7,000 or $8,000.
Right.
If you want a JJP game, they're all. But it always comes back to how much people hate Gary Stern and how he's not giving them the innovation they want. And why does he hate us so much? If people take this stuff so personally, why aren't there 6 upper playfields on this game? And hey, you know what? Spooky just put out Halloween, and it's got 3 fucking upper playfields. Perfect. I'm not here to trash Spooky. You send Spooky money, they will send you a pinball machine.
Right. They're a real company that has a product.
They are, and they started small. Ben Heck was involved with them in the beginning.
So at this point, Deeproot's on the scene. We're pretty much evenly split at this point between the people who've been around for a while who are like, no, this is like not just a scam. This is like a big time scam. And then on the other hand, you have the noobs who still believe in the pinball magic and the dream. What at this point then is starting to happen in terms of like the nature of the accusations maybe, or the claims that are being made about the validity of this business? Because at this point, it seems to me, at least looking back, that the tenor of the accusations is now really shifting from these guys are idiots and they are incompetent and they're never going to be able to ship to no, there's actually like something fucking going on here.
That took a long time because again, anytime somebody brought up, how is this guy going to do this? And how is he going to do all those fantastical claims he's making about making more pinball machines than anybody's ever made in a year, and this guy is the king of corporate doublespeak bullshit. He's talking about things like octo manufacturing. That's going to help us crank out these games. Dynamic cross-staffing, lean, agile manufacturing.
I fucking love being lean and agile, dude. It's my favorite.
It helps you keep things moving. And this was like, I was like, this guy is so full of shit. This was my thoughts. The language this guy used. And it was all very Trumpian, the bragging and the boasting. And his famous quote, which he will never live down, it's going to be on his tombstone. And if it's not, somebody will be kind enough to spray paint it on his tombstone. His famous quote was, "Pinball is easy. And I'm going to show you all that pinball is easy."
Oh, my God.
You've been led to believe it's not by these guys who don't know what they're doing, by Gary Stern, who just wants to fuck you out of all your money without giving you magic. Pinball is easy, and I'm going to prove it. And every time people were like, how is this going to work out? He's already, at this point now, it's been going on a couple of years. He's been, he hired all these people. He's paying all these salaries. He has a huge animation studio. He's employing 200 people.
He's now at this point opened up an entire brand new office, which he owns and is also renting to himself, as I recall, right?
That's going to be in Texas. Also, he has no production facility.
In San Antonio. He has like this office space in San Antonio.
Yes, that's going to be the big factory, which he's never shown anybody any pictures of. We've seen a lot of pictures of giant empty rooms. Right. And even at this point,
so for these 200 people, if they're not working in the manufacturing wing, is that all animators?
Yeah, I have a friend who talked to this guy a guy with some money who was a potential investor, but I think he really just wanted to hear about it. And he said that the basic idea was that this guy thought he was going to start an animation studio like Pixar, basically. So it's not just pinball. It's
just use the pinball thing as a launching point. You know,
basically, Deeproot is going to infest every part of your life. You're going to enjoy a Deeproot movie with the kids. Then you're gonna play a Deeproot pinball machine with your friends down at the bar.
And of course, don't forget, you're going to invest in a Deeproot IRA that's going to be guaranteed to pay you 6.5% per year.
You're going to drive your Deeproot SUV to your Deeproot warehouse.
Deeproot Funds is going to ensure the financial security of your family.
Right. And that is real, by the way. The Deeproot Funds thing is very, very real. And it's important to point that up. Yes. That at this point, he was making material claims. He's not doing the thing of, past performance is not indicative of future outcomes. He is promising people that he will be able to pay them on their investment at least 6.5% a year. No questions asked, no matter what.
And, this goes on a while, and he's hiring. He's hired a ton of people. He has a huge staff.
By the way, Brian, can you see where this is going yet?
Fame and fortune, riches, comfortable living, nice house with 4 children and a 4Runner.
Exactly.
And not only this, he's apparently he's starting Deeproot Sports. I guess he's going to be a sports agent. He has like courtside seats for the Spurs. Deeproot is everywhere and
I love
at the
how
same time.
These like business guys are like, They do develop some incredible skill at something that has made them a lot of money. And then they just go, I bet I can do everything.
Yeah. And people are they're impressed. And the naysayers are like, where's this money coming from? At one point he did an interview where he announced he has a burn rate of $750K a month. That he's working so hard to on these games that he's burning through this kind of money. Who knows if that was even true? It could have been bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, everything this guy said was bullshit, but he was spending a lot of money. That's clear. And
also worth noting as well at this point, he has hired a guy named Steve Bowden, who is a longtime member of the New York City pinball community to write rule sets for these games. Really deep, the deepest rule sets you've ever seen.
He's a top 25 accomplished tournament player. And he also has a very popular pinball machine, I guess, website or Facebook page called Fun with Bonus. And he was hired. This is right on the heels of Bowen Cairns, another top-ranked pinball player, being hired by Spooky to help out with their rules. It seemed really modeled after that. We're going to hire a guy who doesn't code, but he relocated to San Antonio from Jersey to join this staff. And a lot of people were down there. At the same time, this guy's starting to make promises. He's also spreading a lot of money around. He gave a ton of money to IFPA to be a, quote, platinum, plutonium, double gold sponsor.
IFPA, by the way, for those listeners not initiated, is what? The International Flipper Pinball Association. It's the governing body of international competitive pinball.
Yes. And I wouldn't say a sponsorship there has a ton of value, except that competitive pinball players check it every day after a tournament to see if they've gone up or down in the rankings. But this guy gave them a lot of money to be their sponsor. He sent a lot of money to the Texas Pinball Festival for their tournament. He's $15,000, $20,000 for the prize pool. And as someone who's put on a pinball tournament, that is huge. Someone's going to give you free money as prize money. Usually the prize money just comes out of what the players pay, and it's fairly paltry. All of a sudden, now the grand prize is $8,000 or something. He gave money to Papa, who everybody loves. Papa ran Replay, FX, and Pinbird, which was the world's biggest pinball tournament with the world's biggest prize pool. And he spread a lot of money around to a lot of people to generate a lot of goodwill.
And by the way, it's worth noting, you mentioned this. Spreading the wealth around like that, like doing some sort of patronage, some log rolling, that's a very good way to earn goodwill. Yeah. Because then you can position yourself as showing up for the community, right? It's like, I'm not just like trying to sucker you. Like I am with you, right? I support what this thing is about.
Right. And so he announces Texas Pinball Festival, which is in Texas. I think it's near Dallas, which is probably somewhere near San Antonio. It's I know Texas is a very small state, so it's probably right next door.
Yeah, tiny. Famously small state.
He announces, not only am I giving $20,000 to the Texas to the tournament guys to have this huge prize pool, I'm also going to reveal everything at the 5 days of Deeproot. That's, I know, it's even at the time it sounded fucking stupid to me, but whatever. The 5 days of
Deeproot, my true love gave to me.
Culminating, I can only assume on the last day of the Texas Pinball Festival, which is a huge pinball show. It's a very, very, one of the biggest of the pinball shows. Like, I don't know, 2 weeks before it, he's like, you know what, we're not ready. There will be no 5 days of Deeproot.
Oh, no. I was so looking
there
forward to
no
it.
days of Deeproot.
There will be we're not ready, so there will not be 5 days of Deeproot. We're still going to donate the money to the tournament and the festival. That's still in play. But you're going to have to wait a little longer for the big Deeproot reveal. This is when some people, including myself, and yeah, I have to say, I went through that thread to look at all 700 of my posts in the Deeproot thread. And that was the point where I was like, you know what?
It's a real barn burner of a thread, folks, by the way. If you've got like a weekend to spare and you just want to read some posts, check out the Deeproot thread on pinside.com.
Yeah, I recommend you just filter it to read my posts. That'll give you a pretty good idea. And, you know, I feel pretty good about it because, you know, a lot of times you look back and, I shouldn't have said that or that was stupid. Or,
yeah.
Yeah, that was the point where I believe I said this is starting to look like all the other scams we've seen.
Sure. So this is toward the end of 2018 then?
I think so. I don't really remember, but it was 2018. And and I think at that time I said this is starting to look like every other scam we've seen.
Right.
Talk a lot of shit, promise big, delay big. And that's what was starting to happen. The only thing they hadn't done, and this is what people would never fucking let go, they haven't asked us for any money. Where's the scam? And this is when other people who have a better understanding of how financial stuff works than I do, have a better understanding of these funds. And they say, you know what? That's not really true. Somebody is throwing money away right now.
Right.
And it might not be us, but there's a very good chance that somebody is getting screwed out of their money as we watch this train wreck unfold.
And I remember at this time, actually, in some of my conversations, then seeing some of these things that were from the other sides of Deeproot, including, of course, Deeproot funds, where it was like, you know, their prospectus. And this is not a prospectus that looked anything like the normal prospectus you would see. Again, it guaranteed outcomes, which you cannot do in investment. You literally cannot. Not only should you not do that, you cannot do that. It is not possible to guarantee a future result. That is a fundamental fact of investment. And that should have been a big old fucking red flag.
Nobody cared because he hadn't asked for any money. He was
from pinball people.
Nobody cared because he's stuck to his promise not to ask for pre-order money. He's not going to go down that road.
No gray rabbits.
No rabbits to fill in. He's not going to make the same mistake that we've seen that we've seen several times already, where he's going to ask us for money. He's managing J-Pop. It's all going to happen. Just not this year because it's you know what? At this point, he's starting to amend he's still doing these softball interviews, but some people are starting to get a little suspicious. And now he's saying in his latest pinball interview, pinball is easy. Just like I said. Right. It's just that putting it all together and actually manufacturing the pinball machines, it's a little harder than I thought.
Right. So then we roll around to the beginning of the year of our Lord 2019, and at this point, we still haven't seen anything concrete. We are looking at
that's not completely true. Sometime around this time, 2018, 2019, out of nowhere at a relatively small pinball show, it was like a Houston amusement. It might not even been pinball. It might have been an industry show or something like an amusement industry. Out of nowhere, this prototype of Raza. We're not even making Magic Girl is going to be later down the road. Now we're working on this retro atomic zombie. That's the one. That's the one that's going to be the first release.
I'm spot checking now the thread from Pinside to make sure that we're getting the timeline right. And it looks like beginning of 2019. That was when they were really starting to hype up that Raza is coming back. At this point, Magic Girl, yes, they have promised that Magic Girl will get shipped. And if I recall correctly, I don't know exactly.
I hate to break in, but there's also a deal on the table now.
Right. Yes.
Right. And this is, again, there's a deal for the people who got hoodwinked the first time around.
Right.
You can get your money back. You can get a check right now. If you play it in for any of these J-pop scams, you can get a check for cash money and you're out. Of course, you waive any legal this or that, but you're getting your money back. If you don't want to do that, you're signing a release of all legal responsibility for the previous scams. You're going to get your Raza. It doesn't matter if you bought a Magic Girl or if you bought an Alice in Wonderland or if you bought a Kiss or if you bought a Raza. You're going to get a Raza. You're going to get store credit.
Well, if you bought Ben Heck's Raza, which is different, by the way, from Raza, but at this point as well, the game. The Magic Girl conversation has pretty much, the goalposts have shifted, right? Now it's like Raza. We're going to ship the new version of Raza. And then after we get that out, you're going to get your Magic Girl. But like, just trust us, guys.
But why not get the Raza? Take the Raza. We're going to give you store credit or get your money back. At this point, anybody who was not living in an insane asylum took the money back. They said, you know what? Are you seriously going to send me a check? I think this was a very small group of people. We never will know how many people got their check, but it appears that many more were so tantalized by finally getting the Raza that they never asked for or ordered, that they were in it. They were ride or die.
Well, and it's such a great way of putting it too, because it's like a deal or no deal because of the way these appreciate in value. It's like you can take this amount that the dealer has put out for you, or you can open the next briefcase. And they're like, well, I don't want to be a sucker. I have so much money I could make off of this.
And I don't know if it was everybody. I don't know if it was even Alice in Wonderland. Because the other funny thing is J-pop had no accounting system. He didn't know who owed him what. He didn't know who he owed. He didn't know anything. Like, he took money and he didn't write it down anywhere. So it was pretty rough, like who actually was owed. All people had was these receipts with these whimsical pointy hands on them, telling them that they were owed a Raza or an Alice in Wonderland or a Kiss or a Ben Heck or a Raza or a Magic Girl. The whole thing. But so now
they just had to uncover their little pop-up ticket thing if they had any hopes of getting their money back or getting their
there was
Raza,
no spreadsheet. There was nothing.
Oh my God.
As far as I know, some people did get their money back. And and of course it wasn't their money. It was stolen money, it turns out. But that's beyond the point. So this, of course, leads to more of this nonsense.
Right. Just to clear the timeline here too, because again, I'm looking at the thread so that I can make sure we get this right. Beginning like April-ish of 2019 is when we start to see a little bit of collateral about what new Raza will look like. At this point, we still don't have anything concrete in the way of like a playfield or anything like that. That stuff.
When do you see the buyouts in there? You probably missed that. That might have been around 2018, 2019.
Yeah, no, because this thread I think was after that time. But then we do get sort of the very first like playfield stuff, the very first gameplay stuff. This is all happening in November of 2019.
Right.
At this point, people throughout the thread are comparing it to the Homer, that from The Simpsons, the famous car that Homer made, that they added 10 gazillion features and it cost $10 gazillion. Yeah.
Yeah, this is around 2019 when the game was seen by some of the public. It showed up at this Houston show out of nowhere. Right. And I remember, this is the reveal. It's just at a show. And I was like, where's the fire? I thought this thing was going to come descending from the heavens. And there would be all these babes on it. And it would explode. I was like, the whole thing was very un-Deeproot, considering all the shit this guy talked. It was just kind of popped up at some C-list pinball show and people played it and some people took video and it looked pretty fucking terrible. It was you couldn't make the ramp. It was typical J-pop nonsense. You couldn't make the ramp. The whole thing was has anybody seen the ramp? Has anybody seen them make the ramp?
Nobody could make that fucking ramp. And that's the joke. That's the running joke about it, is that they had a completely unmakeable ramp.
It's the power, because at these pinball shows, the current, sometimes the draw is too much. And that's why you can't.
Is that what they said?
Yeah, that's what some people were trying to. You can't.
That's so funny.
All right, you know what? They'll fix it. They'll fix the ramp. they'll fix the ramp.
They'll fix it.
And it was pretty clear this game was going to be fucking terrible if it ever came out.
Oh my God.
So then that's happening in 2019, late 2019.
So this was the Raza that they showed off.
Yes.
This
is what the people who were stupid enough not to take their checks
were
going to get.
Yeah, the year 2020 continues, and not much.
What happened? Something happened in 2020, right?
Oh no, I'll get there. But I'm saying
that generally in the world something happened.
Oh yeah, in the world, yeah.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
And then I remember because it's all a distant memory now. But
It's all over. We're all fine now. I'm not still in small town New Mexico because I lost my apartment. But
now in I don't know, January, February of 2020, he announces, okay, here's the big fucking event. There's going to be a bunch of pinball machines. There's going to be a Raza playthrough. There's going to be a Tex-Mex buffet. There's going to be... It's all
San Antonio.
Yeah, San Antonio. It's all going to happen in the Deeproot Theater. We're building it just for this fucking...
Everything about this sounds so terrifying. Well, let's come into the Deeproot Theater. No one has ever died inside the Deeproot Theater. I just needed to tell everyone that.
By the way, the guy who built the Deeproot Theater is one of the many ongoing current lawsuits against Robert Mueller and Deeproot.
Of course.
He never got paid for this 5,000 seat fucking theater he made at the Deeproot facility. But anyway, it's going to happen. You want to come?
Right.
You want to get your Tex-Mex buffet? Send us your credentials. You know, are you part of the pinball media? Are you part of the real media?
Are you part of the fake news media?
Now, fortunately for Deeproot, praise God, this fucking horrible pandemic happens. And he's able to say, you know what, we're going to have to delay this thing. Because there's no way on God's green earth that this thing would have been anything but an unmitigated disaster in early 2020.
And then we sort of proceed through the year 2020, and we don't hear too much, right? Other than like a little bit here and there until we hit September. And I have it up here. I would like to read verbatim this release.
Okay, so this is 11 months before right now.
Correct. Let me pull this up here. Here we go.
And keep in mind, it's already 2 years now since the 5 days of Deeproot was promised to all of us.
September 21, 2020. Deeproot Pinball has spent years redesigning the pinball machine from the ground up with countless novel approaches. On this past Saturday, we had hoped to host a launch event with 6 well-known pinball personalities. Due to technical issues and lots of feedback from our guests.
I have to cut you off. Before this happened, it was announced that we're going to do a reveal. It's a pandemic. We can't do the 5 days of Deeproot.
Right.
We can't do the Tex-Mex buffet. We can't bring in the entire pinball media and anybody else who wants to come. We're going to do a reveal for the lucky VIP 6. We're going to bring in 6 lucky pinball celebrities to experience what we wanted you to see last year or earlier this year, what we wanted the 5 days of Deeproot to be. The event actually does happen. They go in there and Raza in all of its glory is shown, and they all sign NDAs so they can't talk about it. The VIP 6, and the event actually happens, and we're all breathless waiting to find out what happened. And then it starts leaking out like, hey, it was a bit of a disaster. And we're of course all thrilled to hear this because it's amazing. It's what we've all been waiting for is, this spectacular flame. So then what happens is they issue the press release that you're about to read.
Yes. So they are grateful and thankful to Lauren, Carrie, Colin, Jeff, Chris, and Crystal for their invaluable feedback and involvement in refining our platform to be the best that it can be. The result is the realization that we are not as ready for launch as we had hoped. We are already working hard to fix the technical issues and implement our guests' feedback. So the only right decision today is to postpone the public release of our platform and our first game, Raza. We hope that you agree that releasing a well-engineered and fun-to-play Raza is in everyone's best interest! ! We hope to update you during this process. We remain deeply committed to delivering the highest quality of gameplay and innovation to our players. We thank you for your continued trust and patience, the team at Deeproot Pinball.
Well, I'm seeing what the real problem is here from that. It's that pinball is just too easy.
Pinball is easy. Now, we're only, 3 years into this fucking thing. And let me tell you what actually happened at this reveal, because it all comes out in the next couple of days. All right, The game won't turn on. It won't work. You can't play it. there's this
The
ridiculous...
part where the power gets introduced to the device, not so great.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Deeproot has been going on for a year about their incredible hammer-proof playfields. One of the biggest complaints from pinball buyers is that these games dimple. They get these tiny little dots in them because a steel ball is harder than a piece of wood. And it drives everybody fucking crazy, despite the fact that who gives a shit? It's a pinball machine. You're going to get these tiny little things. It doesn't matter. It's not anything. But Deeproot's going to fix that with their magic hammer-proof playfield clear coat. Okay.
I mean, the sheer number of times that I've hammered a pinball playfield, and it's, like what.
But would you like to? Are you going to
That's a problem that demands a solve for. You know what I mean?
Are you going to get a dimple on your pinball machine where you can literally whack it with a hammer? No, you're not. So they had the VIP6 whacking it with a hammer. And all was well and good. The problem was that apparently the hammer-proof clear coat had the texture of a orange peel. It was lumpy. And it was not something you want on your pinball machine. So that was the last we ever heard of the hammer-proof playfields. After they made a huge deal about it, after they offered to make T-shirts of people poo-pooing the idea that they could get rid of dimples. There was some speculation that some quotes from myself from PONZI offered. There was speculation that some of my own quotes were going to end up on these T-shirts, thrust in my face, mocking my malfeasance and doubting the possibility of the hammer-proof playfield. And then it was revealed that it basically had the surface of the moon. It was not good.
It's also worth noting that at some point around here, they do start taking paid pre-orders as well.
Well, we're getting to that.
Okay.
The next thing is they still, like this didn't really go our way, but we're still going to announce all the cool shit we were going to announce that we're still working on. One of these things is the pin bar.
Oh, yeah.
The pin bar is, quote, the most revolutionary innovation in the history of pinball.
Brian, what do you think the pin bar is?
I can't. At first, I thought it was just going to be pinball in a bar, but it can't be that, right?
Yeah,
it's going to be something so much more amazing than this.
Think about a pinball machine, right? Think about all of the parts of a pinball machine.
So is it a bar with an upper playing field?
Not quite. What part of the pinball machine doesn't have a screen but could really use a screen?
The entire thing.
I was going to say the plunger.
All right, look.
Just a very small round screen.
Brian's just a civilian. He's not a pinball guy. He's never gonna. He doesn't have the.
He doesn't see the vision.
He doesn't have the kind of mind that can come up with this kind of innovation. But anyway, this is the most, quote, innovation that has ever innovated in the history of pinball. This is an industry that invented the flipper in 1948. This is an industry that invented the score reel. Scoring on pinball machine used to be light bulbs, and you would add up your score.
The industry that invented the slingshot, that invented the pop bumper. What could be on the level of those innovations?
The pop bumper came before the flipper and revolutionized pinball. It was the first time that a mechanical device on the pinball playfield interacted with the ball. Before there was even the flipper, there was the electric pop bumper, the digital display, the dot matrix screen, the LCD screen.
Yeah.
All of these innovations were going to pale in comparison to the pin bar. One day, this is how they wound it up this pitch. And at this point, I was doubled over in laughter. One day, people will walk up to an older pinball machine and say, "Where's the pin bar?"
Where's the pin bar? Yeah, I remember that.
So the pin bar was the front of a pinball machine has something called a lockdown bar. The lockdown bar is what holds the glass into the pinball machine. To remove the glass on your pinball machine, you open the front door, you pull a lever or you move a latch, and you remove the lockdown bar, which is a piece of metal. Generally, it's just a piece of die cast metal, and you take it off, you put it aside, and you slide the glass out. The pin bar changes this ancient, non-innovative dichotomy to add a widescreen LCD touchscreen to the entire pin bar. The lockdown bar is no longer just a static piece of metal. It is a interactive touchscreen, which will unlock the potential of a pinball machine to a degree that we've never seen in history.
Now again, the thing about the pin bar, right? Brian, you've seen a pinball machine. You know, what a lockdown bar looks like, and you know what the dimensions of a lockdown bar are, right? It's very wide.
I was thinking, am I just thinking of this wrong? It's just the front of the...
Yeah, it's the piece of metal that's at the very front of the thing. Yeah, exactly, on the corner.
Well, now it's got an iPad on it.
Yeah,
so what do you fucking do?
But also, this is a screen, like thinking again, going back to like cost of materials, that kind of thing. You're talking about a screen
a touch screen.
A touch screen.
A custom dimension touchscreen. It is extremely wide and extremely short. These do not come off the rack.
What do you think the cost of goods is for something like that?
What are you do? What are you supposed to do? What are you touching? What is
well,
this
you're
screen
touching.
do
You're
for
touching
you?
the pin bar. What do you mean? Like,
if you walk up to any old pinball machine, which now instantly looks like it was made by the Amish. If you walk up to any game like that,
I mean, my third eye has opened.
Right. Think of every game. What's the same about every pinball machine you ever played? It has a start button. It has an old school micro switch or a contact start button that you have to press. Right? But now you're going to
like
start
some
your
kind
game.
of a cuckold.
Yeah. Now you're going to start your game by touching the pinball. And then in the game, there's going to be all these cool features that are going to be unlocked by touching the pin bar and moving things around. And this is why people like pinball, because they love fucking around with touch screens.
They love yeah, exactly. It's
not only
I wish this table was more like my phone.
I would like to touch this completely non-tactile surface. That's what I love so much about pinball.
Go to your upper middle class parents' house. They might have something like this on their refrigerator or even their stove. It's like,
which everybody loves. It makes the stove and the freezer so much more usable.
As the pictures started to roll out, people were taking pictures of their stoves and their refrigerators, and they were proudly displaying the pin bars that they own. The other thing about this pin bar is it was completely 90-degree angles. Now, anybody who's ever played Stellar Wars or any of these other 70s Williams wide-body games, which was a new concept that was very popular for a couple of years in the 70s, late 70s, they were wide games. And they had these lockdown bars that were basically rectangles. And they really are painful on the center of your hand happens to be a nerve center. Right. There's bones there and nerves. And it would really hurt playing these games. Like, because you whack the side of you do a slap save. It actually
or you push down on it, you move it around,
It's a little painful to play these games, and you kind of think, oh, this is not so well thought out. The pin bar had these exact same dimensions to
those
it.
edges were fucking sharp, too,
They
right?
appeared to be sharp and painful, yeah.
I am looking at a picture of a pin bar now.
Levy is fucking tickled that like he's getting to describe the pin bar to virgin eyes, and you're just like taking it in.
I was so hoping I would be able to trash this reveal. And while everybody else is going over the fact that it was basically canceled because they're obviously not ready again, I was writing Magna Carta length screeds about how ridiculous the pin bar was. And the best thing was the pitch for this pin bar, beyond, the most innovative thing in the history of pinball. Have you ever seen, of course you have, those made on TV, those as seen on TV commercials?
Right.
Like,
has this ever happened to you?
Right. And you see a guy just trying to dice a tomato and he's chopping
black
his
and
hand
white.
off.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, the tomatoes are on the floor. And it's like, has this ever happened to you when you're just trying to juice an orange and there's like blood and like the dog is mauling the guy because he's got a bloody hand now and there's oranges everywhere. That's what they were trying to make this up. They were like, no longer will you be forced to attempt to operate an archaic and impossible to understand button system to change your setting. Now, for anybody who's not familiar with pinball machines, there are 4 buttons inside the coin door of a pinball machine. It's been the same menu system for about 30 years. You press the right button to enter, the left button to escape, and the 2 center buttons to move up or down. Those are also your volume buttons.
It also takes, if you've never used it before, it takes you approximately 1 minute to wrap your head around it.
It is a very intuitive, simple, and reliable system. 30 years on.
And reliable is important, by the way, because, we're talking about a mechanical game with a lot of moving parts.
You're talking about a game that people are going to spill beer on.
Yeah.
You're talking about a game that's going to take a lot of abuse. You're talking about a game that's going to get used. Now, these they almost always work. It's 30 years old. Sometimes one of the buttons doesn't work. So you hack, and if you want to half-ass it, you literally just hot wire it. You cut the wires and then touch the wires like you're trying to steal a 78 Cutlass, and the button will work. Or if you got 45 minutes to kill on a soldering iron, and you want to do it right, you can put in a new set of buttons. This is 30 years on. Okay, so we're going to make this needlessly complicated, obviously fragile, infinitely more expensive. And this is the world's because we're going to save you from I remember arguing with some people about this. Like, are you fucking kidding me with this pitch? They're like, well, I do find it kind of difficult to use these buttons sometimes. And people so wanted to believe that this was the innovation. And the other thing is, this has nothing to do with the fucking game. Nobody cares.
Right. No, I mean, like, that's something you spend a few seconds doing, but most of the time you're pushing the two buttons on the side of the machine.
Right. Oh, and by the way,
play the actual game.
And by the way, the entire pin bar assembly raises with the playfield. So no longer can I raise the playfield during a switch or solenoid test. These are diagnostic things that you use.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that.
You know what else you can't do with a pin bar if it breaks? Anything.
Yep.
You can't start your game. You can't do diagnostics. You can't figure out why the fucking pin bar isn't working because your screen doesn't work anymore.
Right.
It's one of the dumbest ideas I've ever heard of. And it was pitched as the greatest thing to happen in the history of pinball. Around this time, as you mentioned, maybe a couple weeks later, he announces, okay, you've seen what it looks like. It wasn't ready to show you. The rumor on the street is that the pin bar didn't work. So they couldn't actually boot up the game for the lucky VIP 6. They couldn't play this fucking thing. So people had flown out to San Antonio in the middle of a pandemic to see it wasn't going to happen. But now we're going to sell these things. We're going to take money for a month. This is December 2020. For 25 days, we're going to allow you to send us $2,000 or $500 or whatever as a deposit. Or if you want to get to the front line and get your Raza before anybody else, we're going to let you spend the entire $8,000 or whatever the hell they were asking for this. This is when the Homer comparison really people are like, this is it. This is the fucking innovative. The game looks terrible. The pin bar is stupid. It didn't work for these pinball celebrities that they flew out here to see it. And now you want us to send money? Who's going to be fucking stupid enough to do that?
Me.
That's we've got all the pieces in place. We got the pin bar, we got the greatest designer in the history of pinball, and we've got the showman, the salesman who's going to make it all possible. At this point in the Deeproot saga, it is December of 2020.
And shit, there's one other thing I got to tell you about.
Okay.
Before December.
Not only did he announce the Raza that doesn't work and the pin bar that's going to change pinball forever, he announces the PinPod.
Oh God, the PinPod. We got to talk about the PinPod.
Right.
What?
It was
Brian. Let me frame up.
Brian, what is the same? Every pinball machine you've ever bought. What is the same about the way it arrived to your house?
All of those pinball machines that you've bought.
What is the same about every one of those games that came off the truck? When it came off the truck and you looked at it, what was the same about every one of the pinball machines you ever bought?
It's in a bunch of stupid, boring cardboard.
That's right, Brian.
Right. See,
if only there was some other packaging material that could bring me my pinball machine.
He's picking up when I'm laying down. It's this fucking box. The box. I don't want to. We could spend 3 hours on this, but the box was created back in the Egyptian days. The innovation on the box is completely through the floor. Like there's been nothing.
Right.
It's just, no. The greedy Jews who run pinball are happy to give you the same shitty fucking box for every pinball machine. Well, they pocket the profits. It's fucked up. But here comes Deeproot.
Please tell me that they somehow incorporate a pin bar into the new packaging.
They did not. But what they did bring you was the PinPod, a $950 box for your pinball machine that will revolutionize the way you get your pinball machines shipped. This box, it's insulting to call it a box. I'm going to call it a innovative containment shipping domicile.
It's a wooden crate, right? Like it's made of wood.
It's got straps on it, and they didn't make it. They bought it.
Is it hammer-proof wood at least?
Yes. long story short, they took some other amazing new innovative box that someone else sells, slapped Deeproot on it, called it a PinPod, and
literally slapped Deeproot on it. Like
Right.
they stenciled the logo on with spray paint. Like,
and then they told you it was going to cost $950. And if you didn't buy the $950 PinPod, which not only is going to help your rosin machine arrive to your home with a functioning pin bar, it's going to, you can use it in the future. Anytime you
The
have a
box
game,
costs extra?
$950 extra for the pin bar. And whenever you have, but it's not just for this game. Whenever you want to move a pinball machine, whenever you want to ship a pinball machine, you can use this pin pod, which is basically a fortress around your game. It's the most amazing box in the history of boxes. And except for all the other ones that other companies have used, I guess. Also, if you don't,
Brian is like borderline in tears right now.
So I'm looking at the picture of it right now too. It looks so annoying. It is the most pretentious fucking crate that's ever existed. So you're just supposed to put this fucking thing somewhere in your home for the rest of your life?
It gets better because the pin pod will not fit through a normal front door. So you
gotta get the pin door. You gotta get the Deeproot pin door.
That's it. You're right. The pin door.
It's another $2,000.
It's like two big dudes with sledgehammers who expand your doorway.
Your normal door is expanded.
Right. So this is another way that they're revolutionizing the pinball industry is with the pin pod. Also, I'm not confirmed on this because at this point everything was so insane that you didn't know what was true and what was fiction. But I believe if you didn't upgrade to the PinPod, you kind of waived any kind of warranty you would have on the game because shipping it in a normal box would open it up to the damage, of the forklift or whatever. Now, we can't do this now. I would love to just sit here and watch it with you guys, MST 3K style. But there's a 25-minute video.
I watched that earlier. It's fucking awesome.
How did you almost let the pin pod go? What kind of a podcast is this where you would just almost move past the pin pod?
Oh my God, it's called a podcast. Not even talk about the pin pod? Fucked up.
So this video was posted by Deeproot Pinball. It has about 967 views.
That's it.
Which
hopefully
we've gotten more views on our videos. And it was posted on December 7th, 2020, the anniversary of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And this is
it's hard to say what was a bigger tragedy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It has handles just all over it for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening here.
I think the pin pod might have destroyed more lives than
it's destroying my life.
Well,
I'm going through a crisis looking at this thing.
You need to watch the video on your own time. All of your listeners need to do
We'll
this
link
video.
it. We'll link it in the show notes.
Good.
It'll totally happen.
I don't understand what any of that means, but it has to be done. If it means more people will see this video where they're all wearing masks, but you can't help but feel bad for all these guys who are being forced to watch this presentation. And he's doing things like asking, okay, when you get a pinball machine, what's that called? When you have it, when you buy a brand new pinball machine, what is that? What is that? And somebody's like, new in box? Yes, new in box. Very good. And it's like this kindergarten class of condescending bullshit. And then he goes on about the total, it's not just the pin pod. Really watching that video, it really shows you everything deeper. You've got this bullshit laden buffoon with this giant gut straining to get out of his tiny. And if anybody's seen this fucking guy's Facebook profile, he obviously spent a lot of the money that he stole on retouching for his photo. Because I had no idea that his body looked like a skinny guy with a fucking beach ball shoved up his shirt. So this is this guy. He comes out here. He's saying okay, like the South Park guy every 5 words. He's like, okay. Here's what Deeproot's all about, okay? Deeproot is about the TPOE. It's a little thing we call TPOE.
Oh, and I would love to learn what those letters stand for.
You don't have to live in a world where you don't know what TPOE means, because I'm about to tell you the total pinball ownership experience.
Of course.
Are you fucking kidding me?
You haven't been getting that from Stern. You haven't been getting that from Jersey Jack. You haven't been getting that from anybody. You have not been getting the total pinball ownership experience. Are you, Brian Alford, are you down with TPOE?
Yeah, you know me.
Fuck yeah. The total pinball ownership experience. And Deeproot is the one who's going to bring it to you. And
oh my God.
Part of that is this PinPod, this ridiculous fucking box. We're going to try to sell you for $1,000.
We've got the PinPod. We've got the pin bar.
Pin bar.
We are now at this point. It is December of 2020. Robert Mueller, the biggest huckster in the history of pinball,
And that's saying something.
Is really saying something. Is now taking pre-orders for Raza. In something resembling volume. Like we've got, I think like a couple hundred people, right, who end up pre-ordering.
Nobody knows how many people were stupid enough to give this guy money, but there are rumors that he bought 30 of his own or something to like pump up the number. I think the final number was 167 people or something went with either the $1,000 deposit or the full fucking money so they could get the first. So they could be the first people to experience TPOE firsthand.
So then at this point, the communication largely goes dark at this point.
There's a $1,500 extended warranty option.
Right.
I also see, maybe this is getting ahead of things, there's 2 editions of this game.
Right.
There's the arcade edition for you lowly plebes who can only afford $65,000 or $7,000 of this, and then there's the extra edition, which is going to be like $9,000 or something.
13K.
Yeah. What? Are you serious?
13K.
Yeah.
How much was the arcade edition?
$8,000.
Arcade edition has a better color palette, I have to say. Like changing the color palette entirely was a bad choice.
Right, and it doesn't have the back box that looks like an aquarium for a fish.
Yeah.
And that was the other thing too, was there was like the whole stupid like back box that was like elevated above the thing because, pinball for too long, the back box has been attached to the body of the game. And, we got to revolutionize that too.
I don't even want to get into that because it's just aesthetic. And by the way, other manufacturers had done that. There was a company called Wicco that had made a game with the identical back, but I don't want to talk about that. What I do want to talk about is on most pinball machines, you raise the play field. Right. You slide it towards yourself and you lean it back against the back box, or you raise it and there's a little prop bar, kind of like the hood of a car. And that's how you get to look underneath, depending on what mech you're trying to get to or what switch you're trying to get to. You do one of those 2 things, you start fucking around underneath the pinball machine. Because that's what you do when you own a pinball machine. You got to do a lot of fucking around. I guess if you don't want to, you spend these $1,500. What were they going to do? They were going to send like a pinball mechanic to your house? I don't understand what the $1,500 extended warranty was supposed to get you, but you can be sure some fucking moron spent the money on it. Anyway,
I don't know, some guy comes to your house and sucks you off.
Gets you a spare PinPod.
Gets you a spare PinPod.
Anyway, that shit's not good enough for Deeproot because we're innovating everything. Everything must be innovated. Now we're going to install hydraulic struts on this playfield glass, which is going to rise.
Right.
No fucking way.
Yes, fucking way. It's going to rise with a pleasant hiss, like the hatch track of your car, and it's going to raise up. And now you don't have to worry about the glass breaking. You don't have to take the glass out of the game. It's all contained in this ridiculously complicated and expensive system, which anybody who knows about hydraulics knows in 5 years, that's going to start sagging like an old man who's out of Viagra. But it doesn't matter because it's all fucking innovative. Everything about this game, we're changing everything. So basically what you have here, and it's such a strange, you've got a complete flop of a reveal. That was nothing short of a disaster. The reveal was a complete disaster. And at the same time, we're going to put these things for sale and you're going to give us money. And by the way, no photos of our factory, no information about how we're actually going to build these fucking things. And, this is what happened. And this brings you up to the end of 2020. And not too many people are doing it, but there are people who sent them money at this point. I would say at least 100 people.
And after that, 2021 begins. And at this point, Mueller and company are really just kind of keep kicking the can down the road. Well, like there isn't
also Mueller is no longer giving interviews. He's no longer posting in the Deeproot thread about what fucking morons everybody is. He was doing that for a while.
Right. No, there's really largely radio silence, and the few communications that do come out are basically just excuses for why this thing is nowhere close to shipping yet.
Every couple months, there's a new email about, this is one of my favorites. previously we told you this game was going to ship in March of 2021. Those were external estimates. The internal estimates are different. And at this point, we're going to stop sharing external estimates. We're just going to keep it all in-house. It's all about the internal estimates. We're going to stop telling you when the game is going to ship because you guys berated us into giving you these external estimates. And we're going to stop doing that. We're going to each press release starts getting stupider and weirder at the same time.
And at this point too, the discourse, on Pin side at all is just, it's becoming laughable.
It's evolving. There's a lot of pointing and laughing and a lot of defensive. You guys don't know what the fuck's going on over there. This is still.
And at this point, it's really at this point just like a handful of diehards. Like the vast majority of people have come around and realized that this is not fucking happening. Some people I think have swallowed their pride, but not everybody.
The Germans were the last to fold. Much like World War II.
As per usual,
Yeah, the Germans, for some fucking reason, there were 3 or 4 German guys who were total diehards on this shit. They were like the entire time. They're like, you're a fucking moron. This is innovation. This is what. And I remember March, April of this year, the Germans lost faith. And it was a little sad, It was like.
When you've lost Germany, what do you have, really?
I remember when the Germans started saying, I'm starting to think I'm not getting my game. Or like.
And you still, at this point, did have a handful of people, really like 3 guys at this point, who were like.
A couple months ago, April or some shit, I don't even know anymore. There was another, and I don't even know if this was total bullshit, but there was another refund offer. It was like, here's your last chance. I know we're fucking this up. If you want your fucking money back, now's the time. We're only going to offer this for like 2 weeks or 2 days. Get your money. I don't think anybody at that point, everybody was like, ride or die. I knew this was a gamble. Buying a fucking $10,000 pinball machine.
It's when prophecy fails at that point.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like QAnon, right? It's like the day of the storm keeps getting pushed back over and over and over again. It's a very similar thing.
Look, I might be wrong, and I can't say it on Pin side because it's a moderatable offense. But I am of the belief that the vast majority of these Deeproot cultists are Trump voters. They exhibit the same characteristics to me. I might be wrong. I don't know how many Germans are voting Trump, but it was. Well, I mean, it all seemed very similar to me. I'm just gonna say that.
No, and I want to put a pin in that because I want to talk about that a little bit more. Like once we kind of wrap up, I want to talk about like, well, what have we learned? Of course, the answer is nothing. But like, still, there are, I think, a few things that might be interesting to touch on in regard to that. Because like, it is, once we get to, 2021, again, it's nothing but kicking the can down the road until eventually, finally, the House of Cards collapses.
So are there other developments in this current year?
Yes.
Besides what has just happened a few days ago, are there other things like in February, March, April?
About 2 weeks ago, a very enterprising insider, by the way, this entire time, a very drunk Ben Heck has been posting for about a year and a half.
Perpetually drunk, perpetually posting.
Every day, every night, about what a shit show the whole thing is.
It's kind of awesome.
Oh my God.
Getting into fights with mostly one guy from Texas.
Yeah. I'm going to say, if you're not going to only look at my posts, only look at his posts.
It's pretty funny.
Because for him, it's like a religion. It's like trashing Deeproot and everybody ever involved with it is like, it is his God.
And he never ended up dealing with Deeproot specifically, right?
Correct.
Personally,
he was long gone by
but he did get fucked over by J-pop. Right. And so for him, it's a very it's a personal axe to grind.
Right. He was for like a month was under the J-pop spell. This legendary pinball designer wants to bring me to Chicago and get me involved and then he wants to name a game. He says that he thought that was a little weird. He's like, wait, he wants to name the game after me? But he said he was under the spell. And hanging around with this guy for a couple weeks or a couple days broke the spell pretty quick. But that was not a luxury afforded to. Yeah, you would think if most of these people got to hang out at Deeproot for a week, maybe they wouldn't have sent them $10,000 or $20,000. That's not how it went down. A couple weeks ago, this guy Blueberry Johnson. I don't know who he is. Wow. I don't know what his story is.
That's a great username, though.
It is.
Wow.
And he starts telling it, hey, you know what? Deeproot is scrubbing all of their online presence that they can. Mr. Mueller has shut down his LinkedIn. He shut down his Facebook page with a horribly retouched photo of him, being 150 pounds and not 250 pounds. Everything is leaving. Like most of the Deeproot site is gone, except for what you probably just looked at. And at this point, everyone starts getting in. It's over. It's fucking over. That's generally and there was still a couple guys like, fuck you. You don't know what you're doing. It's not over. No, you don't know what's going on in Deeproot. It's not over. But it was starting to look all of a sudden super over. And there was some vague message from him about we've run into another roadblock. There's some unexpected legal action I have to deal with. Some very vague, but it was looking pretty bad. And then,
right.
I think, was it Monday? Was it today?
Yeah.
Do you want to handle this?
5. Oh yeah, I'd love to, because this is my shit right here. I love this. So on August 21st, 2021, aka Saturday.
Black Saturday.
James UK from Norwich in the United Kingdom makes a post. Is this real? And links to a URL.
It's real and it's spectacular.
https://www.sec.gov/litigation/complaint/2021. We open this up. In the United States District Court for the Western District of Texas, San Antonio Division, jury trial demanded. Securities and Exchange Commission plaintiff against Robert J. Mueller, Deeproot Funds LLC, aka DPRT Funds LLC, and Policy Services Incorporated, defendants, and Deeproot Tech LLC, Deeproot PINBALL LLC, Deeproot Studios LLC, Deeproot Sports and Entertainment LLC, and all of these other named actors are being taken to...
Name all of my scam companies the exact same thing.
Yeah, I mean, this just reminded me of the animation studio, and I wonder how those poor people have been doing for the past few years.
Right. All of these entities are named and being taken to court by the United States Securities and Exchange Commission under the claim that, and I quote, this is line number 1 in the complaint, from at least September 2015 to at least February 2021, Robert J. Mueller and Deeproot, both investment advisors, defrauded 2 investment funds they advise and nearly 300 people who invested roughly $58 million in the funds.
Way to go, SEC. We're building back better, folks.
By the way, we did leave out a little bit of the 2021 stuff. There were more and more disgruntled employees were coming out of the woodwork saying they hadn't gotten paid for months.
Oh, okay.
There were furloughs. A lot of the stuff a lot of the cracks did start to show up in the last year.
Yeah, right.
Of disgruntled former employees who, and stuff is showing up on, there's
right. Yeah, I do have a couple of those Glassdoor reviews from Pinside that I pulled up. These are very negative reviews. The consensus is basically something's fucked. This is not.
He's
this
having
is
us
not.
work for free. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Right.
He's full of shit.
Jesus
kind of all the stuff that people were saying.
And so the core of the complaint basically is that Deeproot had something called the 575 Fund. And again, just to quote the complaint directly, for the 575 Fund, investors committed their principal investment for 5 years and elected to receive either simple annual interest of 7% per year paid out in a lump sum at the end of the 5-year term, or 5% simple annual interest paid out in monthly installments for each of 5 years, thus the 575 in the fund's name. Again, this is guaranteeing an outcome.
Yeah,
That's
pretty concretely saying, yes, you're getting this exact amount of money.
It's insane. It's and so, it is pretty clear that what was going on here was classic Ponzi.
He gets to the part where it talks about all the great shit he spent his money on.
Yes, of course, right.
For one thing, someone usually a Ponzi scheme is someone just buying stuff for themselves. This guy's actually also pumping it into 1,000 failed business ventures, pinball.
Right. What it comes down to is the pinball scam was extremely small in that
It was small potatoes compared to the overall
What did
thing.
he
Yeah.
actually steal from the pinball community? $100,000?
Right.
It wasn't
Right.
much.
That's bupkis compared to the 80 million he took from these investors. Here's something else from the complaint. Mueller also used more than $1.5 million of the fund's assets to pay hundreds of personal expenses, including his daughter's private school tuition, vacations with his family, his second wedding, his second divorce, his third wedding.
Sorry. That's everybody's favorite part of this complaint.
It's so funny. Jewelry for both his second and third wives, including engagement rings and wedding bands for both wives.
By the way, Ben Heck says that he told him his second wife was too unattractive, so that's why he had to dump her and bring in wife number 3.
God. And so and also he bought a condo in Kauai, Hawaii. So like this guy was just when asked by SEC counsel during investigative testimony about his use of the fund's asset to pay for these personal family expenses, Mueller asserted his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. So like now, obviously,
and he's not the only douchebag Mueller named in this. I think his dad or his daughter,
a few different people got named.
Yeah,
and ultimately, all of the Deeproot entities, like ultimately in discovery, a whole lot more is going to end up coming out about Deeproot itself. Like we are at the very beginning of this.
But these are just civil charges. Like this, none of this could land him in jail. But I guess the feds could come in and charge him with something.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like
it opens the door for sure. Right.
But it ultimately, either way, like there will be discovery that will unearth a lot more stuff. And, we're at the beginning of this story here now in terms of like what was actually happening behind the scenes. And this really like, there's never been anything like this in pinball.
It's not just Texas. It's Utah and Texas.
Right.
It's unholy alliance of Mormon and Christian.
Right.
And somehow created this whole thing.
But there's also like, this is Gizmondo. This is the pinball version of the Gizmondo.
Yeah.
Which, like, in the video game world, there was this handheld device, the Gizmondo, and it turned out one of the guys was, like, involved in the Swedish mafia, which, who knew? And, like, he crashes a Ferrari, it shears it in half, and then he blames it on some drunk German named Dieter who doesn't exist because he was just the one who crashed it, and then he moved over to the passenger seat. Like,
that's awesome.
A device that completely spun out of control. But it's happening for pinball.
Right.
Yeah, it's the whole
thing. This is going to get so weird.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe in a year and a half, Levi, we could have you back on again to sort of talk about, what ended up happening in this case, because it's just beginning.
Yeah. And it is funny because you were talking about how dime a dozen this kind of thing is. And as we were starting to get into the scam, and the messages that he was making and saying, oh, yeah, this is going to be easy. It's like, oh, yeah, yep, I've seen this. I've seen this so many times before, not just with Gizmondo.
I mean, that has to be the name of the docuseries, right?
Yeah.
Pinball's easy. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how we get our Netflix deal.
Yeah. Pinball's not easy. It's just, But the thing is, like, about, again, the nuts and bolts of the scam, it's just the same thing we've seen a million fucking times before. It's just a fucking Ponzi scheme.
Right.
And it's pathetic, and it's sad that pinball people got stuck into this again at this point, not knowing better.
Right.
And it'll happen again. I mean, there's a company called Haggis Pinball, and I don't know anything about them. I'm not going to say they're criminals. I'm not going to say they're not. They put out about 4 pinball machines, literally 4 or 5 pinball. They're in Australia. They've taken thousands and thousands of dollars in pre-order money on a Fathom remake. And people are happy to give the money, and nobody's skeptical about it because they're nice guys and they seem to have their heart in the right place. And it's happening again. And it's like, there's no fanfare about it. The people are happy to give the money.
Right.
And I'm sure the next people who show up are the same. I just don't understand what's so odd about the concept of just make a fucking pinball machine and I'll buy it.
Right.
Like, why can't it just be like that?
So
that's how it is with Stern. That's how it is with Jersey Jack.
And some people are just like, for whatever reason, constitutionally, they cannot and will not ever learn. I mean, I'm just kind of like scrolling through Pinside right now, and I'm seeing this extraordinary post from a man in Halifax who says, and this post was made 2 hours ago. This is a brand new post. J-pop could be managed in the future. You would have to set short-term goals and make sure he stays focused.
Wait, is this Great Witch guy?
After all the...
All right, he's out of his fucking mind.
Okay. But like after all the failures he has had since the glory days, finishing with the closing of WMS, you would think that he will have to drastically change and take a lower job to move forward. He has some good ideas, along with some wacky and poor ones. That is why he has continued dreaming the last 20 years. Like,
I mean, it sounds like if you want to make a J-pop machine and actually ship it, you get a set of ideas from him, you let him work on it for about a month, and then you hand it over to somebody else. Which it kind of sounds like is what they were doing back in the day.
Brian, you have a good heart, but the best thing for any J-pop project is to not allow him
not have him
do it.
Not have him.
You take it back out behind the barn to shoot it.
The most charitable thing that you can do with this person is say, hey, we'll have you make a pinball machine and then tear it away from him.
Yes. Yes.
So that someone can take the idea, they can have the brand name, and they can run with it, but then actually have a pinball machine at the end of the day. But
there has to be a way.
Yeah.
Now, don't let this Great Witch guy sway you. That is a outlier opinion at this point.
Of course.
And most of the people who had their money stolen have just disappeared because they've been they've been so invested in this, and it's gotten so contentious that they've really it's gotten to the point of fuck you, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm getting my game. Shut the fuck up. And everyone's all, you're a fucking moron. You gave these guys money. And it's gotten pretty ugly.
Right.
So it seems like the story is over, but you never know. And you never know, the next scam could be right around the corner. And pinball people have been proven they cannot be trusted. As long as they're not happy with the games they're getting, which are fun, functionable, reliable pinball machines that you can pay money for and receive a month later, as long as they're not happy with that, there's always going to be someone out there ready to steal their money. And I don't think we've seen the end of it.
I want to take a step back now because we have now heard the extraordinary true story of John Papaduke and Robert Mueller and Deeproot Pinball.
Yeah, you've heard the short version.
You've heard the very short version. If you want to hear the long version, there's a 500-page thread on pinside.com.
And not just that, you'll also want to go to the Magic Girl thread.
Right.
And you're going to want to wade through the 10,000 posts in that one.
I also really like that somewhere along the way, Alice in Wonderland has completely disappeared. It's not even something anyone's talking about at this point.
That's true, actually.
Everyone's like, where's Magic Girl? And Alice is just in a hole.
It's funny. Once every 6,000 posts, someone will mention that. They're like,
of course.
Hey, what about me? I have money in on Alice in Wonderland.
Everyone's like, shut the fuck up. We're talking about big boy stuff.
So taking sort of a step back then from that story specifically, I think it's interesting that, this is a story that ultimately just reinforced. It's very much in the same vein of American con man stories from way back to now, right? It's like the same promises. It's a different product, but ultimately it's promises that aren't delivered upon. But there are people who hope so desperately and they want so desperately for the thing to be real because they have skin in the game and they're unwilling to own up to the fact that it isn't real. And I thought, Levi, that your comparison earlier to, Trumpism was really interesting. It was one of the things that I wanted to sort of close on in talking about here, because ultimately with, diehard Trumpism, especially when we look at QAnon and the really, really hardcore guys who are like, no, he's actually still president. Just you wait, he's going to be back because he's the guy. There's so much, there's a lot of parallels there. And I'm curious, what you make of that way of thinking about things, why people think that way, and why ultimately there's going to be another sucker who's going to fall for the same thing.
Well, I've hammered the point a few times. I think it boils down to people are just not happy with reality and they want to believe the fantasy, which is
right.
You can spool whatever you want up in your mind, and the fantasy is always going to be better than the real. This pinball machine's okay. It's got flippers, it's got ramps, it's got the same shit every pinball machine I played in the last 40 years has. But this guy, he's going to really push the envelope. He's going to give me the innovation I want. I don't know what I want, but I know I want something better. And that's what I'm going to get. He's going to make pinball great again. That was actually fucking Jersey Jack's slogan when they started making pinball machines. We're going to make pinball. Well, they jumped on it in 2015 where he started putting out these hats to make pinball great again. He was one of the first guys to figure out how clever that was, to put something besides America in, and we're going to make pinball great again. And that's that is what it comes down to, is that's what these people want. They think they like pinball and they don't. They really need to be in a different hobby. They want.
What do they like?
They don't know, but they know that this fast-talking douchebag who's rich is going to give it to them. And that's the source of every one of these fucking scams. Boom.
Boom.
They should try model trains.
Anything.
I mean, like,
It's like-
actually, that it might be up their alley.
It's like somebody who thinks they want to be into fishing, but what they really want is like to be into like cigarette boat racing.
Yeah.
It's like they
I
think
need
they want
innovation in
pinball.
my fishing.
Right. It's just the whole reason
I need the pin
people,
bar in the handle of my fishing rod.
people like pinball because it's the same thing it's always been.
Yeah.
You got flippers and you got a ball and you play it with your friends and you're trying to get your score higher and you shoot these things and this happens. And then, okay, there's some cool pinball machines with like gimmicks. The ball will disappear as a magnet. But in the end of the day, it's just pinball. And every time one of these hyped up games gets revealed, and it turns out it's just a pinball machine, you can see half of the crowd, like you lose half the crowd. They're so disappointed. You mean it's just a pinball machine? There's this fucking Godzilla game's about to come out. And if there's not an articulated, motorized, 7 inches tall Godzilla stomping across the playfield and blowing fire at you, there's going to be hundreds of people who are disappointed with it. And they're all going to blame Gary because he hates you and he's cheap and he just wants your money. And all he's going to do is deliver you this Godzilla pinball machine when you pay for it. And it's not going to have an actual fire-breathing Godzilla. And they're going to, in their mind, if some rich, smooth talker comes along and tells them they're going to give them that fire-breathing Godzilla, they're going to send him money. And I just wish it would stop. And it doesn't seem like it's going to happen anytime soon. So, I'm a little depressed.
Yeah.
And it's not just the fact that I've been drinking all night.
Well, until that happens, until people stop searching for the, fully automated, fully articulating, fire-breathing Godzilla, we're going to stay here stuck in the worst of all possible worlds. And to close, I'm the worst of all possible Joshes.
I'm the worst of all possible Brians.
And I'm the worst of all possible Levies. Don't get me wrong. Pinball's super fun. If you want to play pinball, go out and play pinball. This isn't about you. Like, go play pinball and have fun. That's what it's there for. And people seem to have forgotten that over the last 15 years, lusting after these imaginary pinball machines that are never going to exist. Just go out and have fun. If you want to buy a game, there's 3 or 4 companies now that will actually give you one. That's who you should send your money to. Play pinball, have fun. That's what it's all about.
Hell yeah. Is there anything that you wanted to...
Is that an upbeat enough way to end this?
Yeah, that's great.
I think so. Is there anything that you wanted to plug before we bounce? Or
If you want to, buy a pinball machine that's been gone through, it's fun, it exists. You can go to www.crazylevypinball.com and maybe I'll sell you one. Maybe not. You have to pass a rigorous application process to prove that you are worthy of one of my used pinball machines.
Yeah, it's like adopting a dog.
I have never been good at pinball. I have fun whenever I play pinball, but I've never built up the skill or been that much of an enthusiast of it. I think there's really only one innovation that a pinball machine needs, and I've never seen it. A pinball machine that sucks you off.
You're not the first person to decide that that's what they want. Every time somebody tries to sell a pinball machine for like $15,000, that's generally one of the comments. Will it suck me off? No, it will not suck you off.
All you need is how much does a flashlight go for? Those are kind of expensive, right? Like $60 or something.
That's usually my response.
That, a little bit of duct tape, and there you go. Pinball machine that sucks you off.
Pinball machine that sucks you off. Have a good one, everybody. See you.
Good night.
So many possible worlds, but we got this one.
A pinball machine that sucks you off. Sounds crazy, no? But here in our little village of Anatevka, every one of us is a pinball machine that sucks you. I'm sorry. Okay. This emergency podcast has been brought to you by our wonderful patrons at Patreon. That includes Aeneas Hemphill, Ben Ferber, Benjamin R. Alford, Bill Davis Vandestieg, Dominic Russo, Nate Netzley, Nell Jordan, Octavia Immersive, Trevor Strunk, with a special thank you to Ashley Stoneman, Nikola Donov, Sam Borman, and Timmy Sexton. All right, till next time, stay safe.